Good evening. This is the Thursday, February 11th meeting of the Pleasanton Unified School District School Board. Good? This is the February 11th meeting of the Pleasanton Unified School District School Board. This regular meeting will be conducted completely online. The Governor's Executive Order N2520 relaxes the Brown Act requirements for holding public meetings via teleconference. Per normal practice, the meeting will be live streamed and available at www.tv30.org for viewing and also broadcast live on Comcast TV Channel 28 beginning at 7 p.m. Links are available on the agenda. Online speaker slip links are available on the meeting agenda and on PUSD's website. The public will be able to call in using a computer or smartphone via a link which will be provided following submission of a speaker slip. A telephone option will also be available. Once connected, the public speaker will be placed in an online waiting room. While in the waiting room, the public speaker should watch or listen to the meeting via the outlets above, as they will not see or hear the meeting while they are connected and waiting to speak. When the agenda item upon which the individual would like to comment is addressed, the speaker will be announced in the meeting as to when it is his or her time to speak to the school board or board of trustees. The speaker will then be moved to the meeting for comment. TV30 is allowing only audio at this time, adding a full screen public comment when the speaker is talking. In an effort to make our board meetings more accessible to the community, we have a new process for accessing closed captioning and providing input through public comment. Please find directions for accessing closed captioning on tonight's meeting agenda and also on PUSD's website. Can we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance? Mahi?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So our president, Joan Larson, is not able to attend today due to a death in the family. So we would ask you keep her in our thoughts and prayers this evening. And I'll go around the dais here and introduce those of us who are here. To my right is Trustee Kelly Mokashi. Next to her is our superintendent, Dr. David Hagland. On the screen, which is the next item for me, is Trustee Steve Maher, followed by Trustee Mary Jo Carrion. I don't see. Oh, there she is. And then down here back in the room, we have Patrick Gannon, our Public Information Officer. We have Ahmad Sheikho Leslami, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. We have our Assistant Superintendent of HR, Julio Hernandez, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, Ed Dialazo, our Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Woodward, and we have our student board member, which is Mahi Patil from Foothill High School. Foothill High School, yay. Okay, so closed session, we had no action in closed session today. So next we'll look for approval of the agenda. I'm going to propose that we actually change the agenda a little bit and start in the report discussion and action item section, start with item 12.2, which is our presentation by the Tobacco Use Prevention Education Team, the TOOP team, and Red Ribbon Week. And then we'll go on to 12.1, then 12.3. So could I get a motion for the agenda with those modifications?
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Okay. Trustee Carrion?
Yay.
Trustee Maher?
Yay.
Trustee Mokashi?
Aye.
And Trustee Miller, aye as well. So that passes. So we will, again, go to 12.2 first, then 12.1 once we get there. But before we get there, we get to do our favorite part of the meeting, which is recognitions and introductions. So I'll turn this over to Dr. Hagland.
Thank you, Vice President Miller. For our first, actually we only have one recognition tonight, and it's one of my favorites, the Community of Character Traits, and in this particular case we're going to be talking about self-discipline, so I'll turn it over to Mr. D'Alonzo.
Thank you, Dr. Haglund, and I will join you in that sentiment. This is really a fun time to recognize our students, so thank you, Board of Trustees, for the opportunity to do this tonight and celebrate our students. We're very excited to see them and also hear about them through these nominations. So throughout the year, we recognize students who demonstrate one of the 6 identified community of character traits. These traits include compassion, honesty, respect, responsibility, integrity, and self-discipline. This evening, we're recognizing students who were nominated by school staff for demonstrating the character trait of self-discipline. We want to thank our students for their hard work at school and their outstanding character. So tonight, award winners are being recognized from Fairlands and Vintage Hills Elementary School, Hart Middle School, Village High School, and Middle College. Now I'd like to introduce our student board member, Mahi Patil from Foothill, who will read the nominations for our students. And students, just a reminder, when Mahi reads your name, please say hello so that the video will go to you and we can see your face. So,
Thank you, Mr. D'Alonzo.
okay, go ahead, Mahi.
So first we would like to recognize 2 students from Fairlands Elementary School. First we have Alexandra Yi from 1st grade.
Hi. Hello.
Alex was nominated by Cheryl Atkins. Alex has shown up to every Zoom, both whole class and small group. She's fully engaged, sharing at the beginning of the Zooms and participating fully with reading, showing her whiteboard with work, answering and asking questions. She completes her assignments each day without needing teacher reminders to do so. Alex is a pleasure to have in class and demonstrates self-discipline each and every day. Congratulations, Alex. Next we have Arihan Sharma from 2nd grade.
Hi.
Ari was nominated by Tina Gerstenberg. Ari has many leadership qualities and self-discipline is one of them. He arrives at class meetings before they begin with his book, folders, and supplies at hand and is always eager to learn. He regularly engages in conversation and consistently raises his hand and waits patiently until it is his turn to speak. He listens actively and attentively to his classmates when working in small groups and helps keep the group focused and on track when needed. Congratulations to Ari. Now we would like to recognize 3 students from Vintage Hills. First up is Emery Boots, who's in the 3rd grade.
Hello. Good evening, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Emery was nominated by Julie Castillo. Emery comes to class every day prepared and ready to learn. She is kind, helpful, energetic, and thoughtful. She's a star student. I'm so proud of her. Congratulations, Emery. Next we have Carter Ensign from the 3rd grade. So Carter has been working hard in our virtual classroom. He always participates and tries his best on his assignments. Great job, Carter. Keep it up. Congratulations. Next for Vintage Hills is Andrew Yang, also in 3rd grade. Andrew was nominated by Christina Doss. Andrew Yang is a stellar student who has been extremely responsible in remote learning. He is on time for every meeting and reaches out to his teacher to ask questions and get help. He completes quality work and strives for excellence in all he does. He regularly participates in class and gives his best efforts. It is with great pride that I nominate Andrew for this award. Congratulations, Andrew. For the middle school level, we would like to recognize 3 students from Hart. First is Isabella Tom in 6th grade.
Hello.
Isabella was nominated by Erin Vanderzee. Isabella shows amazing self-discipline by asking questions in class and trying until she gets it. At home, she helps with her sisters in the afternoon, but does not let that impact her commitment to homework. She continues to get her work done and goes to office hours and asks questions whenever she needs it. Hart is very proud of the hard work and self-discipline Isabella has shown. Congratulations, Isabella. Next is Sebastian Tapia in the 7th grade.
Hello.
Sebastian was nominated by Brittany Hill. After struggling first quarter with virtual learning, Sebastian was committed to raising his grades for the semester. He showed immense self-discipline by showing up to our weekly check-in meetings on time and ready to learn and improve. He started advocating for himself in his classes and asking for help when he needed it, showing a lot of discipline in getting most of his assignments done on time. I'm very proud of him and the improvement that he showed from first to third quarter. Congratulations, Sebastian. Our next student is Layla Maxwell in 8th grade.
Hello.
Layla was nominated by Terry Quesenberry. Layla has really turned it around since school started this year. She has demonstrated self-discipline and effort by checking in and attending office hours to ask for help when she needed it. This effort has made an impact and great improvement on her grades. Hart is very proud of the self-discipline Layla has demonstrated this year. Congratulations, Layla. At the high school level, we will be recognizing 1 student from Village High School and 3 students from Middle College. From Village, we want to congratulate Mia Terracone in 11th grade.
Hi.
Mia was nominated by her teachers at Village. Mia was unanimously nominated by all her Village teachers to receive this honor. Even during this challenging time, Mia has earned a high amount of credits. At Village, credits are determined by not only work completed, but also time spent learning in the virtual classroom. She has also challenged herself to do work outside of class to make sure she's on track toward graduation. Mia also worked during the pandemic to raise funds for a horse rescue organization that is important to her. The whole Village High School staff is very proud of Mia as she has shown individual responsibility and ownership in her personal success this school year. Congratulations, Mia. From Middle College with a homeschool of Amador Valley High School, we would like to recognize Dane Coolidge in 12th grade.
Hello.
Dane was nominated by the Middle College staff. Dane is new to Middle College this year, joining our program as a senior, which can be a bit of an adjustment, especially with the remote platform. Dane, however, worked incredibly hard to adjust to taking college courses and integrate into the program with great maturity, kindness, and a dedication to his studies. Dane has been a wonderful addition to his high school and college courses. Congratulations, Dane. Next, we have Susan Zhang. Susan is also a senior with a homeschool of Amador. Susan was nominated by the Middle College staff. She is uniquely well-rounded and impressive. While she started taking concurrent enrollment courses at LPC prior to Middle College, she has advanced through higher-level college courses, including the entire LPC Calculus series, College Physics, and OChem, while maintaining a 4.0 LPC GPA. Congratulations to Susan. Lastly, for this evening, we are excited to recognize Alexis Bondarenko, 12th grade with a home school of Foothill.
Hi.
Alexis was nominated by the Middle College staff. Alexis has been planning to be an astronaut since she was in elementary school and has been putting in the hard work to make that a reality. She's done the research to meet the requirements of the rigorous post-secondary programs to which she is currently applying. During this difficult time of remote instruction, she continues to be successful in her high school and college courses, has created her own podcast with a fellow PUSD peer, and has been a winning member of multiple national competitions with the LPC Talk Hawk speech team. Congratulations, Alexis. We are so proud of our award winners. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, congratulations, everyone. Great job. Okay, that's it on recognitions, right? So we're going to move on to report outs from our associations, starting with the Association of Pleasanton Teachers.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Haglund, members of the cabinet, and our community. I am Michelle Verkeilen, president of the Association of Pleasanton Teachers. Congratulations to all our students who received awards tonight. It's great to see all of your shiny, smiley faces. I would like to take a minute to thank PPIE, our PTAs, booster clubs, and other organizations that work to supplement all the beautiful options our Pleasanton students enjoy. I've had recent opportunities to speak with or hear from the people who head up these organizations. Throughout this pandemic, these leaders have continued to partner with and operate in support of our teachers and staff to provide the above and beyond resources and at times programs that many view as foundational for our Pleasanton students. Whether it's a fund a need or a grant to which students and educators apply, the work of these foundations allows our members' efforts on behalf of our students additional privileges through the materials and projects they fund. These leaders have been so kind and generous with their resources and their praise. For all in our community that support our schools and students through these organizations, we can't thank you enough for the continued collaboration and support you provide to give Pleasanton students the best. Pleasanton students and staff deserve safe and healthy schools, and we know you believe this as well. I want to take a moment to talk about vaccines with you. I want to provide some clarity on this issue so that our community is aware. Here is the reality about vaccines for educators in Alameda County. A recent media blitz has led the public to believe that educators are now being scheduled for vaccination and that as of this week, we are all being vaccinated. Sadly and disappointingly, this is not true for us here in Alameda County. While the talk is that they have shifted to 1B eligibility for vaccinations, of which educators are a part, healthcare sites and Alameda County vaccination programs say that they are currently not available to us and that due to limited amounts of the vaccine, this process will likely take months. We also want you to know that we continue to diligently and trustingly engage in negotiations for this latest MOU in hopes to reach an agreement soon that would keep all safe, ensure consistency with protocols, and provide for fair working conditions in the midst of a pandemic environment. APT would like to thank the members of our school board for listening to our concerns, guarding our safety, and providing stability to us through maintaining the return to in-person decisions that were made previously. We are grateful for your support, and we look forward to joining our students in class when it is safe and healthy to do so, because Pleasanton students deserve the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Next, we'll move on to California School Employees Association. Derek? We have Derek.
TV30, do you have Derek Soros?
Yes, we do request if he's muted. You're asking that.
So we're going to wait just a second so Derek can unmute himself.
Do we want to come back to him? We'll come back to him? Okay. So while we wait for that, let's move on to number 8 here, which is public comments from the community. Do we have any comments, Patrick, for anything not on our agenda today?
Mr. Miller, we had 2 blue comments, but both relate to school reopening. So
Okay.
we're going to hold those until
Good.
12.1.
Just to remind folks that if you are going to speak on a particular topic in the meeting, then that is a yellow card, and you'll be allowed to speak during that particular item. Oh, Derek. Okay, so next we'll move on to our student board member report. So Mahi, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Hello, Dr. Haglund, Vice President Miller, Board of Trustees, Cabinet members, staff, and members of the community. I'll be presenting the student board report since about November, just kind of the updates on it. So in terms of academics, school reopening plans are being discussed. We've had a successful start of the second semester. We're having really creative virtual projects like the progressive era speed dating in U.S. history. Aerospace engineering built wooden planes and flew them outside. Delta Math is proving to be very successful in math classes, as are Google Form tests and Cengage and formative tests in science areas. We have virtual PE with at-home workouts and minimal equipment required so everyone can participate. Seniors are finally getting a break from college apps and are able to focus on school and extracurriculars a little bit more. Students are a bit overwhelmed with workload, and there is still uncertainty with AP tests in May and with standardized testing, especially with the ACT cancellations in February. Student Advisory Group is continuing to meet once every 6 weeks or so to discuss student mental health and school reopening and broader issues at Foothill. In terms of activities, clubs are doing really well now. Choir is distributing singing grams on Valentine's Day, and leadership is doing a similar thing with Valentine's Day grams. There's the construction of the CTE building, which is going on. Virtual doggy drop-in, which is being held by counseling, and also the counselors' wellness center is doing really well. There's potted plants by student volunteers and counseling department for Sunrise Senior Living. Music for Seniors Club is doing something really unique where they're sending out videos every month to senior centers because they can't volunteer there in person. They also started a new branch called Stories for Seniors, which engages with literature and poetry. Leadership has also sent out holiday grams, had a winter spirit week, adopt a family, sent out encouraging notes for finals week last semester, and made a club website. They're also sorting out senior t-shirt gifts and finalizing plans for Love Week at the moment. And they have different ideas to do for seniors at the end of the year with the senior parent committee and leadership. And there's also planning underway for a possible drive-in graduation or something along those lines. Lastly, for athletics, Winter Guard just had their dress fittings. Band and Color Guard are practicing indoor still. Start of golf, cross country, swim and dive, and tennis for limited seasons. Basketball is continuing to do social distance workouts and drills. Zoom winter percussion is going on, though difficult to maintain cohesion over Zoom. Thank you.
Mahi, are you in any clubs yourself?
I am not this year, no.
Oh, I just was wondering how those work out with the whole virtual thing. I guess it's just a Zoom meeting, right, if you're going to do a club session? Yeah, okay.
Right, yeah. As long as there's an advisor there, I think they're continuing to meet.
Got it. Interesting, okay. CSEA? No? Okay. Next we'll move on. Thank you, Mahi. Any other questions for her? Okay. Next we'll move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Haglund?
Thank you, Vice President Miller. First, I want to express concern and warm thoughts on behalf of the board and the district staff to Trustee Larson for the loss of her sister. While the discussions we will be having tonight are important, they do not rise above the need to tend to family during a time of loss. Our thoughts and prayers are with you and the family, Joan. Tonight, we will discuss ongoing efforts toward a return to school. But I wanted to pause and reflect a bit on just how far we've come as a community. It has taken all of us to get where we are, and it will take all of us to successfully move forward in the weeks ahead. You'll remember how we worked together last summer to imagine and reimagine the ways we could best support students as the school year began, despite the absence of guidance from the state or county. Despite having an approved hybrid plan in July, we made the hard decision to start the school year remotely, which I believe was the right decision for our students, for our staff, and for the community at this time. When guidance for school reopening was established, staff worked days, nights, and weekends to prepare for bringing students back to classrooms. The county guidance has continued to change. As of today, it has been updated 26 times. With each instance, it required us to rethink and replan to incorporate new guidance. In October, we were one of the first districts in the county to submit a reopening plan, and we were the only district that offered small cohorts at all schools for students struggling to access remote learning. All of this work only to fall back into the purple tier and then into the state's stay-at-home order that persisted for nearly 8 weeks. On December 30th, the state issued a new school reopening framework requiring us to once again realign our reopening plans, which we presented to the board for approval in January. I say all this not to toot our own horn or or to make excuses, but to remind everyone of what we have endured together and to encourage you to lock arms with us as we push through these next few weeks. While it's understandable for folks to be frustrated, now is not the time for us to become divided or to spend energy or resources to point fingers or level accusations. At the end of the day, we all are in this for the kids. We, the PUSD staff and families, make up a dynamic, thoughtful, and resilient community. We are better because of, not in spite of, one another. Our discussion tonight will focus on a proposed path forward, one that honors our agreements with our staff and focuses on what we will do to mitigate risks associated with the pandemic so students can begin to return to school. It has been very encouraging to see our county COVID-19 numbers continue to decline. I'm hopeful that our decisions tonight will represent an important step towards a common objective very soon. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Still no Derek? Okay. All right, the next item on our agenda is item number 11. This is our consent agenda, and this is composed of items that are routine in nature and are usually or are always voted on in a block. And unless somebody would like to pull a particular item, I will take a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar,
Consent agenda.
agenda, excuse me.
I'll second.
Motion made by Trustee Mukashi, seconded by Trustee Carrion. Trustee Maher. That's a virtual aye. Trustee Carrion.
Aye.
Trustee Mukashi.
Aye.
And I as well. Okay. Next, we'll move on to our report discussion and possible action items, board agenda item number 12. And remember, we're going to start with 12.2, which is a report and discussion on our tobacco use prevention education and Red Ribbon Week program. So I'm not sure who I'm turning this over with. To?
That would go to Mr. Dialazzo.
Dialazzo. Hopefully your microphone is working.
I hope it's working.
So while we're dealing with that, we could take Derek, who I believe is back on the line.
Derek back? Okay, let's pause this 1 second. Derek, please.
Maybe.
welcome.
I feel your pain, Ed. Hi, good evening, everybody. Sorry about that. Looks like there's goblins afoot for all of us. So yeah, I just wanted CSEA to come in and let you guys know, and it more of a acknowledgement of the great work that CSEA has had with the managers over the last month or probably several months. In the last month in particular, though, as far as getting things ready for the potential of students being on campus. Like last time, I'm just going to echo the same sentiment before. I don't know that we're completely done, but the progress we've made is pretty fantastic. The energy is there, the cooperation is there, and I'm just really thankful about that. I also, the union would also like to acknowledge that, the last year, or just about to a year now, has seen a combination of people have to make, choices between commitment or sacrifice, and some people had to do both, and some people had no choice at all. So wherever things go, we just want to acknowledge that everyone is in a different boat, but we're all in this together, and we hope that we can come to something down the middle where everyone ends up on top. So thanks for your time. Sorry about the legal issues. Maybe I should change careers. Ed, good luck with your microphone, and I'll be here listening. Look forward to what happens this meeting. Thanks for your time.
So I don't think, Derek, that everybody knows what your job is. Would you be willing to share?
I'm embarrassed to share now. I'm the site tech specialist for Amador Valley High School. So, yeah, there you go.
Mr. Dialazzo.
Thank you, Vice President Miller. I think I'm going to see how long I can go here. It sounds like it's working okay. I still hear a little feedback. So before you is item 12.2, and it is the report and discussion item on tobacco use prevention education, otherwise known as 2B, and also Red Ribbon Week. And then these two programs are focused on drug prevention and also tobacco use education. So tonight, presentation will be provided to us by the 2P peer educators, our coordinators, and student services staff. So I'd like to introduce our panel tonight to walk us through the presentation. It'll be led by Ashley Sprader, our coordinator of student services. Joining her will be Heather Pereira, our director of educational options, Kathleen Reef, our director of student services, and then two peer educators, Aisha Cunningham, Sophia Falcioni, both from Amador Valley High School. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sprader, but before she starts, I was just told this week that Ms. Sprader is going to be accepting an award along with our social worker Elise Greenaway at a reception later on this month from the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition for her work with 2P. So congratulations, Ashley. And I will turn it over to you, Ms. Sprader, award winner. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you to everyone for allowing us to present tonight. Tonight's presentation will be provided by student services staff and PUSD 2P peer educators representing Amador Valley High School. We will provide information of District Red Ribbon Week activities, provide an update from 2P peer educators, and share some upcoming events. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Pereira.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. So Red Ribbon Week is a long-standing tradition here in Pleasanton Unified School District. If you have been in the district a while, you probably remember doing a lot of Red Ribbon Week activities when you were younger. So traditionally, it's celebrated nationally or recognized nationally, and it is a week to encourage students to be drug-free, drug and alcohol-free. So it's a national campaign. This school year was unique in that it was the first Red Ribbon Week that was recognized virtually and in different ways throughout our schools in October, and that was October 26th through the 30th this year. Some of the activities that students participated in included virtual spirit weeks. They made game boards, they shared facts and videos from our older 2P educators to the younger students. They also combined some of the work around anti-drug and anti-alcohol with some kindness celebrations that were happening in those same times. And then they also combined it with second step anti-bullying curriculum at some of our schools. So I'd like to turn it back to Ashley to talk about 2P.
Thank you, Heather. The Tobacco Use Prevention Education Program, or 2P program, is a program designed for students in grades 6 through 12 to promote wellness, provide awareness, and educational activities around the harms for tobacco and cannabis use among youth. We are very fortunate in Pleasanton, and we are an active member of the Alameda County Office of Education 2P Tier 2 Grant Consortium, which is for the 2020 through 23 grant cycle. Through our partnership with Alameda County Office of Education, we are able to join many 2P related trainings, conferences, and collaboration opportunities. We actually began to participate in these activities in 2019 prior to our full participation as a member of the current grant cohort. We currently have a designated teacher or site coordinator at each secondary school site that acts as a liaison for the program, and we have amazing 2P peer educators who help support activities and build awareness for their peers. Areas that are supported within the 2P program include peer education, school-wide events, youth development, 2P curriculum and alternatives to suspension, and parent and staff education and engagement. The biggest part of this presentation is really the students. So to further highlight the work that they do, we have two 2P peer educators here with us tonight that will share a little bit more about their experience as a 2P peer educator. Next slide.
Hello. Oh,
Hello, everyone. My name is Aisha Cunningham, and this is my second year as a peer educator at Amador Valley High School, and I am also on the Alameda County Office of Education 2P Youth Advisory Board. And could you go back the previous slide? And a little background on that, the Youth Advisory Board runs county-wide events such as the annual PSA contest to encourage youth activism, as well as the upcoming Teens Tackle Tobacco Conference. And although things have been virtual this year, we've still been able to connect with other students through virtual events and social media outreach, which has been very rewarding. And I'll let Sophia introduce herself.
Tobacco use can be to young lives.
Next slide, please. So now I'm going to lead a little peer educator activity. So first we have 2 truths and a lie, and I'm going to read 3 statements, and as I read them, you can try and guess which one you think is false. So the first statement, tobacco companies spend $12.5 billion on tobacco advertising and promotion each year. Number 2, a study by the Stanford School of Medicine found that individuals who have ever used e-cigarettes are 5 times more likely to contract COVID-19. And 3, e-juice, or the liquid inhaled from e-cigarettes, is made of water vapor and nicotine, which is a highly addictive and toxic chemical. And I'll give you a moment to pick which one you think is false. Okay, so it's actually the last one. So e-cigarettes are not made of water vapor, which is a common misconception. And this is because tobacco companies market e-cigarettes as harmless water vapor, when in fact they are aerosols. And if you don't know what an aerosol is, it is solid particles suspended in a gas. And in the case of e-cigarettes, these particles include dangerous chemicals such as acetone and formaldehyde. And so, of course, that means the other 2 are true. So yes, tobacco companies do spend $12.5 billion a year, and a lot of this money funds advertisements and campaigns that specifically target youth. For example, they use young actors in their e-cigarette ads to portray their products as cool and trendy, and also Juul sponsored a 5-week holistic health education summer program for students in grades 3 to 12. As for the second statement, smoking or vaping cannabis or tobacco damages the lungs and harms the immune system, which makes one more likely to contract COVID-19 and also leads to a more severe infection. Next slide, or tap on the slide. Okay, the next activity is spot the vape. So if you can take a look at the picture and try and see if you can find the e-cigarette that's hidden. So it's actually on the bottom if you can circle it with your mouse. And it blends in with school supplies because many e-cigarette products are designed to look like school supplies, which makes it easier for teens to hide them. And I've seen some that look like highlighters, USB flash drives, pens, and Sharpies. And this just shows that tobacco companies are targeting youth and making it easy for them to use their products and get addicted. And now I'll pass it off to Sophia.
I'm going to be talking about what 2P has been doing throughout the 2020-2021 school year. 2P started off the year with Red Ribbon Week. Red Ribbon Week is an alcohol, tobacco, and other drug prevention awareness campaign. It is observed annually in October throughout the United States. School year, Red Ribbon Week was celebrated on October 26th to October 30th, 2020. Some of the pictures below show the things that Amador 2P did to spread awareness throughout the week. Many 2P programs throughout the district attended 3 virtual 2P trainings with the Alameda County Office of Education. We were trained on common tobaccos, targeting tactics, youth action and activism, and leadership skills. Coming up is the 2021 Teens Tackle Tobacco Conference. This is the 23rd annual middle and high school conference for 2P peer educators. It is run by students and focuses on youth leadership and wellness with over 40 workshops.
Thank you so much, Aisha and Sophia, for all your wonderful and all of our wonderful peer educators for your support. Currently, we have around 50 peer educators across the district that have gone through the 2020-21 Alameda County training. Here on this slide, we have some upcoming events, including a student conference and training opportunities for staff. Not listed here on this slide, but in development is a district-wide 2P event tentatively planned virtually at the end of March that has participants across all of our secondary school sites. So we're very excited about that, and we'll have more information to come. We also really do want to thank the following 2P site coordinators: Dawn Silva, Hannah Davies, Evan Branning, Laura Castro, Akil Rahman, and Tammy Yannick Schoonover, as well as all of our school site administrators for the support to make the 2P program happen. To have a successful program implementation, we believe in the community and family involvement within the program so the students will be aware of a cohesive effort and concern for their health and consequently their ability to succeed in school. We do have a short video linked in the slide as well for parents and the community, and within the slide it provides more details on the 2P program. Finally, we have a variety of resources available for more information, including student and parent resources as well as past presentations. We want to thank the Pleasanton community for their ongoing support and the Alameda County Office of Education for the training opportunities and ongoing collaboration. We look forward to the next steps and all the important work to encourage students to make healthy and safe choices. Thank you so much for having us, and we are available for questions.
Thank you, guys. So we'll take questions from the board members. Trustee Carrion, do you have any questions?
No, I just wanted to make sure you were covering vaping, and it looks like you are. So thank you for the good work you're doing.
Trustee Maher, do you have any questions or comments?
Just a comment. I want to thank everyone for working so diligently through this unprecedented time and keeping the program alive and going, and keep up the good work.
Trustee McCaughey?
Yes, I just wanted to applaud the efforts with all the initiatives that you've mentioned, especially like the peer educators. It's really critical that this be student-driven, and I applaud the efforts. Going back to when I was younger, different times when grandparents, aunts, and uncles smoked. And I grew up with that, and I lost my grandmother and uncle early on due to the smoking. And, it's really interesting, the advertising, the vaping, the addiction effects, and making it very attractive for youth who might not be aware of the dangers. And so I just wanted to applaud the efforts being done. And I just can't say enough about the gratitude for these endeavors. Thank you.
Well said. So you guys, can you talk a little bit, maybe you did, it was kind of hard to hear in this room, but can you talk a little bit about the new, if you know, the new, I guess it's an ordinance in Pleasanton around e-cigarettes, I guess it is. Do you guys know what was passed here?
Yeah, so there was a ban passed on flavored tobacco products and e-cigarette products in Pleasanton, like retailers. And actually, I got to speak at the meeting that decided on the ordinance. It was all the way back in the beginning of 2020, I believe. And yeah, that just passed on January 1st. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that is just so great and that was student driven, student led through the community, which was amazing. How have your activities changed during COVID times versus what you would have been doing a year ago?
This is my first year, but I think definitely I've noticed just
got frozen. Anybody know what she was going to say?
Aisha, did you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah.
Or did you?
Sure. So yeah, it did look very different this year. I mean, we didn't get to give presentations to classrooms yet, and we were hoping, like, if school reopens, we were hoping to do that. And for Red Ribbon Week, we did do most of the same activities, but we changed it to be virtual. So we weren't getting face-to-face interaction that much, but we were using social media as a platform. We have an Instagram account to connect with students that way. And we also did have some students turn up on campus. We decorated the school campus with red ribbons. There was a picture of that. And we had some students turn up to pick up some stickers and lollipops just to support the cause. So that was really great.
So you feel like you're able to get your messages across even in the Zoom world, huh?
It definitely is harder. Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, we can't present to classes right now because there's just no room in the schedule. So yeah, social media is our main form of interaction, and not everyone on campus follows us, of course. So yeah, it is really harder to reach the students. But hopefully once school reopens, we'll be able to connect with more students again.
Yeah, well, thanks for
Aisha, could I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Is the new city ordinance also limiting the distance between stores that sell the paraphernalia and to schools? Are they is there a distance that they must be away?
I don't know the exact distance, but I believe so. Yeah.
I can't remember the distance either, but I thought that was part of the ordinance, that they couldn't be close to school sites
Yeah.
and parks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That was discussed, but I don't know if that is what ended up coming from it. And I have to say, the city meetings that the students spoke at, the amount of students that spoke and how well spoken they are is incredible. So I can follow up, and I know that was spoke on, and there was a lot of conversation about it, but I don't actually know if it went through with the distance.
I think there was a rule before. I think this was more, you're not allowed to sell e-cigarettes in the city of Pleasanton anywhere, right? Yeah, so that's good. Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it. Awesome presentation. Every year. Love it. Good job, and congratulations, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll rewind a little bit and we'll go to 12.1, report, discussion, and action on school reopening. Patrick, do we have any public comment on this before we get started?
Yes, we do, Vice President Miller. We have about 27.
27. Okay, that's enough. I think we can use our normal 2 minutes per comment. So why don't we, I'll pass this over to Dr. Haglund then.
Very good. Thank you, Trustee Miller. So we're going to, if we pull up the PowerPoint, we are going to revisit the school reopening process. We're going to review our current COVID data. Note that the reopening documents that were required by the state and county are currently posted to the website. That includes our COVID-19 safety plan and our COVID prevention plan. Both of those documents are required to be posted on the website by the state, and they went up on Monday. We're going to review the board-approved elementary reopening plan briefly, and then we're going to consider a recommendation for reopening our secondary schools. Just briefly on our current status, and then Ed's going to get into some more details. The county remains in the purple tier. About the trends, the data trends right now are very positive, and we're very hopeful because of that. Governor Newsom's Safe School for All plan is currently being debated against AB 10, and that you'll remember that the Safe School for All plan was a grant proposal to provide funding to sites districts trying to encourage them to open sooner. That plan of the governor's is currently stalled, and we are seeing the debate continue at the legislature. Some positive news with regards to Biden administration's American Rescue Plan, which targets funding towards the vaccines and reopening schools, is making its way through Congress, and there's positive hopes for that one to move through quickly. The executive team has worked hard to adapt our COVID safety plan to incorporate the board's January 28th action, which resulted in the confirmation of a staged reopening of our elementary schools, preschool through grade 5, and then implementing hybrid learning at the secondary level, but we deferred the specific structure decision to this meeting, and so that is the focus of this meeting, is the secondary structure. And just a reminder, so that everybody, understands, per SB 98, the district has to provide a remote learning opportunity for families who want to pursue that option, so that will not be going away. All right, Ed, Mr. DiLazzo.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hagelin. Hopefully my microphone works here for this presentation. So on this slide, you all have who've participated in these meetings have seen this slide before. So just what Dr. Hagelin mentioned, the case rate for Alameda County is now at 18.1, and that is a decrease from the last time we presented here at the board meeting in January 28th, and it was 28.9 at that point. The overall positivity rate for the county is 4.7%, and it was 7.2 just a couple of weeks ago. And then the Healthy Places Index is at 7.6%, and that was 10.8% a couple of weeks ago. The county is still in the purple tier, but we are trending towards the red tier, and in fact, two of those metrics are actually in the red tier, and the other one is in the orange tier, actually. So all good signs for trending towards the lower tiers. Next slide, thank you. I'll move my body to him, there you go. Okay, so the next few slides, we want to go over the vaccination efforts that we've been a part of here in the school district. And one of the first things we did back in January 13th, we actually applied for the Alameda County Employer Vaccine Notification. And this was a way that the county can gather some information from school districts for their planning about the vaccine rollout. So we did that as a school district back in January. The infographic there on the right has a lot of information, so I'll just summarize it a little bit. And actually, our APT president alluded to some of these points earlier in her presentation. So the county is in phase 1B, and the education and child care workers are in that phase, and that phase started this week on February 8th. What does that mean for us? So educators and child care comprise of about 60,000 individuals in the county out of 325,000 people who qualify for that 1B section or phase. The county receives about 10,000 to 15,000 vaccines per week. That means it's a limited supply on a weekly basis, which is part of that difficulty of getting the vaccines rolled out even to our 1B individuals. So the county has talked about what are those pathways or those points of distribution for vaccines in the county, and there are 4. Your own private healthcare provider, the county and community is talking about something called pods, or places in the county that vaccinations can be distributed. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the federal pathway will be in effect here next week, and some of you may have heard of the opportunity at the Oakland Coliseum. The county is working with the federal government and the state to distribute some vaccines that way, and then also some retail sites are planning on distributing some vaccines. At the bottom of that infographic, you could see in the timeline, it says this effort will likely take months. So we just kind of keep that in perspective. We're learning, we're trying to understand this as best as we can as a school district, trying to find ways to get our employees access to vaccinations. Next slide. Okay, this is the priority level system that the Alameda County Office of Education has put together. And just briefly going through it, you can read for yourselves there the priority levels. So just to highlight, priority 1 for TK-12 is for current school site in-person instruction. So personnel who would participate on the school site in-person instruction would be in the priority level 1. Priority level 2 are other on-site staff, and then anybody who's scheduled to return on the school site would be in that priority level 2. Priority level 3 is personnel who remain remote, and then priority level 4 are other education personnel. So the Alameda County Office of Education provided this information to us in a training on February 3rd, and they described what were those priority levels for employees in the school districts who throughout the county. Next slide, thank you. So in working with our Human Resources Department, and we have our Assistant Superintendent here, Hernandez, who can talk more about this if needed, but we gathered that information of the priority levels of our staff, and that was submitted before the timeline to Alameda County Office of Education. Did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Dialazzo. So the district did engage all of our employees. 2,700 employees were given a survey to try to gauge the priority list. Again, priority 1 are staff that are reporting in person, and in our meeting with the Human Resources Consortium at the county, or anybody that would be reporting as of March 1st, and we would have to kind of guesstimate what that would look like. In any event, we did submit a survey to all of our employees with the question, will you be returning to in-person instruction, or will you not be returning to in-person instruction? That, along with the individual's position, either in elementary school or secondary, their credential, we made a determination as to who would be in priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3. That information was submitted to the county on Friday, February 5th, before the deadline. As we know, for our school district, Monday, February 8th was a holiday for us. The county will be issuing us verification letters, and we will be distributing those verification letters to all of our employees. In those letters, it will indicate whether priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. They will be able to, in essence, be in a virtual line, either for their private provider or the state or the federal. They will need to provide their district ID or a California ID along with the letter to be able to virtually stay in line until they're called for their vaccination. And again, we are waiting for those letters to arrive from the county. As soon as they arrive, we will be distributing those to our employees. Thank you, Mr. Dialazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Next slide. Thank you. So I mentioned earlier about the 4 distribution points of distribution, and they're listed here, and I'll go through them quickly. The 2 areas that we have been focused in on as a school district are our connections with the county and then healthcare providers. So just the last couple of weeks, we've had the opportunity to meet with and talk with, I should say, through Zoom, healthcare providers in our area. We had a meeting with representatives from Valley Care. We've reached out to Sutter Health, the Kaiser, also Alameda County personnel, and the city of Pleasanton. So we've really tried to connect with other agencies to see how we can coordinate and collaborate in terms of getting vaccinations to our staff. In terms of my conversation with Alameda County Public Health personnel, while we are in phase 1B, the vaccines continue to be limited. That's what we know. And the vaccines are actually sent to the different agencies. So public health receives some vaccines, healthcare providers receive some, and then also retail sites receive them separately. So it's not like there's one agency that receives vaccinations or vaccines and then they get distributed. They all get their own, which kind of maybe doesn't help in terms of a coordinated effort. But I do know that the county is trying to coordinate these efforts with local healthcare providers and retail stores. So that concept of the pods, that's really important, but the pods are going to be prioritized, meaning certain hard-hit areas in the Alameda County communities, certain zip codes in the county, will get priority, and that was made very clear to me, and then by invitation through a registration process. I'll talk about that in a second. So how will Pleasanton employees get vaccinated? This person, the liaison I spoke with, the best possible way at this point will be through their own private healthcare providers. So there is that process of going through that distribution, but of course, anybody in the community can register through that federal process, the county process, their own healthcare providers, and then retail stores as they get those vaccines to them. Next slide. So we wanted to end the vaccine conversation with some resources that the community can log on to and find out information about the vaccines. Essentially, to register for the federal mass vaccination through through the Oakland Coliseum with the federal government and the state, that myturn.ca.gov, you can log on to that website. There's a registration process on there. Then you could find out if you're eligible, where are you on the list, and then get your vaccinations. At the county level, I already mentioned that website through the Alameda County Healthcare Services. You can go through that website. There's a section on there that asks what your occupation is, and you would tell them educator, then you would be placed in line somewhere. And then I already mentioned your own healthcare provider. So those are opportunities in the community for getting in line for the vaccines. But again, it is limited still in the county at this time. Next slide. Okay, and lastly, really briefly, we did resume our staff COVID testing program. And at this time, it continues to be the surveillance or asymptomatic testing program. It's been offered now to our staff at a one-time a month testing opportunity, and we will be emailing staff for their opportunity to sign up for COVID testing through our process in the district. So that's been going the last couple of weeks. Next slide. Okay, I think this goes to
I'll take it.
Dr. Woodward.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Woodward.
Thank you. So this is a slide that I believe you've seen before, and these are some of the very core mitigation strategies that we use. And when we talk about risk mitigation, we talk about the concept of layering. And so the layering includes as many of these as possible, including masks, physical distancing, small stable groups, hand hygiene, ventilation, screening for symptoms or close contact, and symptomatic testing. So these are all of the things that we are working on as we consider having students and our staff come back to school. Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you, Dr. Woodward. This slide deals with our associations and consultation with them. We do currently have an MOU with our Association of Pleasanton Teachers. The MOU is attached here. It does cover the process of a full remote instruction, as well as a partial return and full return to in-person instruction. The district continues to negotiate with the association, given that they're constantly things are changing, and there is a right of the association to continue to negotiate impact and effects of a plan. We also enjoy a MOU with the California School Employees Association. We've met approximately 24 plus times now. We do have an MOU with them that addresses safety, personal protective equipment, as well as a recall of our employees back to in-person duty. Again, the vast majority of our CSEA classified employees are working in some form physically in person in our school district, some of which are also working with our students in the classroom in our small cohort program. We've also engaged our community, at least in 43 town hall meetings, of reopening steering committees in the summer, reopening task force as well in the summer. We've consulted with all of our stakeholders in addressing the concerns of reopening in-person instruction in our school district. Additionally, next slide, sorry. In addition to the MOUs, we've also enacted a training program for our staff. There are 13 trainings related to COVID-19 that we are mandating all of our employees to complete. They're linked here. Some of the links are attached to Keenan, which requires a passcode to get into, but it does give you a sense of what types of trainings we are requesting our employees to undertake. COVID awareness, CCDC guidelines, producing or making a cloth mask or using a cloth mask, cleaning, disinfecting, managing stress and anxiety, preparing your household, transitioning to a remote workforce, which is something that was engaged in as we transitioned to full remote, home office and electrical safety, time management, flu or pandemic, underlined with the flu, personal protective equipment, resources and guides as to what Keenan offers regarding protecting oneself in the pandemic, etiquette in blowing one's nose, as well as washing one's hands. So these are trainings that we are asking staff to engage in order to prepare transitioning into in-person instruction. Next slide.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
I turn it over back to Dr. Woodward.
Thank you. So we cannot wait to get our elementary schools open. A lot of work has gone into preparing, and our sites are ready. Per previous board direction, preschool through second grade students, our youngest learners, will come back first to acclimate, since many are unfamiliar with their school campuses. And that will be followed within a week for grades 3 through 5 who selected hybrid, and our hybrid learners will return in person for instruction in the A or B model, in the AM or PM. I also want to reiterate that at-home learners may continue to access instruction remotely via Zoom. Next slide. So this slide is a broad picture. It's a general overview of our parent choice commitment process that has recently occurred at the secondary level. And you will see that surveys were sent by each secondary site last Wednesday, February the 3rd, and they closed yesterday at 5 p.m. The surveys were translated into Chinese and also into Spanish. And the survey noted that if a family did not submit a survey, it would result in the student being placed in remote learning. The choices included hybrid, which would be our in-person, remote learning. Students could, if they were already enrolled in long-term independent study, continue with that, or parents and families could indicate that they did not have a preference. Next slide. These are the pie charts for all 3 middle schools combined and all 3 high schools combined. The data for the hybrid is hovering right now around 45% for both groups, and our remote data exceeds 50%. As I previously mentioned, the survey stated that if a form was not received, students would be placed in remote learning. Therefore, the data reflected for the remote learning choice does also include the students for whom no surveys were received. Additional outreach to confirm survey choices will occur within the next week in order to ensure accuracy. Families who may have missed the deadline should reach out to their site principals this week if they chose the hybrid model. Next slide, please. This slide reveals the patterns and responses for each respective secondary site. We do expect that there might be some shifting in the data and that there will actually end up being more students than reflected here in the hybrid program. Next slide. We have seen this slide many times. This slide represents that when we are in the purple tier, secondary schools are closed to in-person instruction per the state guidelines. In the red tier, preschool through second grades would return according to the board-adopted plan 2 weeks after we enter the red tier. With the following week, we welcome back our 3rd through 5th grade students. And then the week after that, we begin the transition process of bringing our 6th through 12th grade students back on campus. Next slide, please. Thank you. This past week, we shared our schedules in which students would attend a limited amount of classes per day in smaller groups with our contact at the Alameda County Health Department. And we were given the green light that we may proceed with this plan as long as we implement the consistent wearing of face masks, physical distance, and the other layering strategies that I previously spoke about. What you see here is the schedule for middle school. Since school began in August, we have been following this schedule. With those who, and when we return, those who will return in the hybrid model will be assigned to either an A, Monday, Tuesday, or B, Thursday, Friday group. On days when students are not on campus, they will continue to access instruction remotely. And students who choose to finish out the year as remote learners will attend class along with their peers via Zoom according to this schedule. Thank you. And this, of course, will happen when we are in the red tier. Slide 21. Here is the high school schedule, which is also similar to what we have been doing and similar to the middle school. Students who return in person will be assigned to either the A or the B groups. We want to keep our schedule consistent with what we are currently doing in order to minimize the need to make class changes and cause further disruption to the system. And please know that these schedules were designed with the input of our stakeholders prior to school beginning. Now, I'd like to address the question that many might be asking regarding if only half the students are able to go back. Is it possible that our secondary students could attend 4 days a week instead of just 2 days a week? And I'd like to briefly address this point. First, we expect that the data will shift in favor of the hybrid model in the next few days. As well, secondary students have 6 to 8 classes, and students are not distributed evenly in all of their classes. So we cannot ensure that we meet the distancing requirements and reduce student mixing based upon the smallest number that we see here. Instead, we need to consider what the largest class size might be during the course of the day. If we were to begin with having students come 4 days in a row, this would likely require teachers to move to classrooms with larger spaces if those classrooms were even available. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the revised plan that you see here for staggered return of secondary students once we are in the red tier reduces the transition time needed in compared to the previous plan that we had shared, which would take 3 weeks. This one brings 6th grade, 9th grade, and moderate severe special day class students, along with our village 10th through 12th grade students, back the first week that we are able to return with our secondary students. And during the second week, our 7th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students would return together. So this is now a 2-week transition plan instead of a 3-week one. Remote learners, as previously stated, will continue to access instruction concurrently, just as they are doing right now. Ready for the next slide? We have asked 4 secondary principals to attend our meeting this evening, and they are standing by to answer a few questions. I'm going to begin first with our Pleasanton Middle School Principal Nguyen, who will take the first question. Principal Nguyen, are you there? Okay.
I am. Good evening, Dr. Woodward.
Good evening. I'd like you to tell us, please, what steps your site has been taking to prepare logistically for school reopening.
I'm speaking for really all the other two middle schools as well, but we've been engaging in meetings with the different stakeholder groups just to gain input, because I think the more heads that are working on this, the better. That includes our site risk mitigation teams. We've been stockpiling, distributing PPE, air cleaners. We've been doing a lot of the grunt work really to measure out 6-foot distances. We have this rod that is exactly 6 feet, measuring in classrooms, in between desks, outside of the doors for where middle school students would line up before entering. We're working on, and this is a big project, directionality maps, just so that we can kind of minimize the opportunities where students would walk towards each other. So our campus is going to kind of look like almost like a street map. Signage for high touch areas, expectation of in-class physical distancing, hand washing signs, disinfectant stations, and planning and producing training videos for our staff and communities.
Thank you.
Those are a few things.
Thank you. Sounds like you've all been very busy. And you're doing that while also visiting classes and supporting the learning at your site. Thank you for that. Principal Butterfield from Amador Valley High School. So you have a very large high school. Can you tell us a little bit about how your team is preparing your high school for reopening?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Woodward, and thank you, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Haglund. We've been working for months and working through that changing guidance, and something that's Cabinet has provided site principals that's been really helpful is a list of standard operating procedures. And so at our site, we've identified our COVID liaisons to respond to any sort of exposure or contact tracing. We have a risk mitigation team similar to what Mr. Nguyen just referenced at the middle schools. And the standard operating procedures move through anything from PPE cleaning procedures to classroom setup. So we've set up some sample classrooms in different buildings that have different class sizes to determine number of desks. We have a food service plan working on reducing our density, and that's in the cohorting that Dr. Woodward referenced in the Group A and Group B. Worked on entrance, egress, movement, distancing across the campus, worked through campus maps to identify how those flows will work during passing periods with one direction of movement of students. And we've been running camps and cohorts since the summertime, since we were allowed. As soon as we were allowed to open from the county, we've been running those camps and cohorts throughout and working through students with health screening processes. And those are practices that we feel really confident in at this point, implementing on a larger scale, since we've had plenty of practices on a smaller scale.
Thank you, Mr. Butterfield. I think I may have heard music coming from your site before. Now, has there been anything happening with band on your campus this year?
Yeah, both of the comprehensive campuses have had camps similar to our sports camps. Our music camps have been going on throughout the fall. And so our staff did a pretty amazing job, Mr. Grantham, Mr. Dandria, preparing some virtual performances of their in-person music making. I know over at Foothill, they were doing the same thing. And we have winter season marching style camps, percussion and color guard that are going on right now. And it's pretty cool that they're able to film in small cohorts and then combine those videos and compete against other schools on a national scale. So they're going full steam ahead, and they're making music at home and on campus in person in small groups when they have the opportunity in a structured way.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now I'm going to call on Mr. Bull from Foothill High School. Mr. Bull, you're the president for the vice president for the E-Ball League, and we know that there have been some recent decisions made concerning athletics. Can you fill us in on what these decisions might be, and then also give us a snapshot on the type of extracurricular activity that has been happening on your campus this past week?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for letting me be here. Yes, I think we gave the update last time in terms of athletics, and we were waiting on some approvals from our North Coast section and league and so on. Those things have all been approved and in place. Currently, we have some athletics underway in the colored tier system. So with the purple sports, have been going on now for the past week or so. Cross country, girls tennis, boys tennis, girls golf, boys golf, swim and dive. Those sports have been taking place already. We're already prepared and ready to go for our red tier sports when that time comes. We reach the red tier, which would be softball, baseball, girls lacrosse, and track and field. The state provides us ongoing updates. We had one just yesterday regarding the participation of athletes at the same time at their school sports. They can also participate in their club sports, which is a change. So we get updates weekly from the state CIF athletic program. And then you may have seen in the news, but there's currently a push by some organizations or some coaches or community members trying to push the state a little bit to change the color tiered system to see if they can alter what sports are allowed at certain levels. So we just wait on our guidance from the state level and from the Alameda County and also our North Coast section in terms of what's coming up next. But like I said, we have some things going on. It's great to see the students out there, the student athletes. There's some contests coming up pretty soon. The first tier sports don't have a lot in terms of competitions compared to some of the red tier and soon to be orange tier after that. So, but yeah, it's exciting to see the athletes out there, and we follow all the safety procedures. They have to wear masks when they're practicing and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Sure is great to have kids back on our campus starting to practice with their athletics or continuing the practices. Thank you for that. I'd like to call on our principal of Village High School, which is our alternative ed site, also the Director of Educational Options, Mrs. Herrera. So you'll see that in the slide where we talked about the recommendation of transitioning secondary students back on campus, we are recommending that we bring back your students during the first week that secondary are allowed to come back on campus. Can you share a little bit about why that might be important for your students to come back at that time?
Yeah, thank you. Happy to do that. So since the onset of the pandemic, we've really tried to keep Village students in the forefront of our thinking in terms of urgency for bringing them back to campus. These are students that have traditionally struggled in school and continue to have challenges in remote learning. Our school does afford us, by being smaller, the ability to have the entire school back at one time and not stagger like the other schools, because we don't have as many students in one place. We also have multi-grade classes. All of our classes are multi-grade classes. We have very few classes that are just one grade level, and we don't have any ninth graders. So it just makes sense that we would bring our entire team back together in that first week to get the kids back as quickly as we can.
Thank you so much for all of you for joining us this evening, and I will pass it over now to our superintendent, Dr. Haglund.
All right, thank you very much. If we can go there we are, we're on that slide. So just reviewing, and you've seen this slide before too, but the secondary school portion has been updated. So with regards to the guidance, we know that the guidance changed at the state level to allow for K-5 schools to open 5 days after the county hits the case rate below 25 per 100,000, and we're well below that now. The board adopted plan to begin phase reopening after 2 weeks in the red tier is the current action that the board has approved. We have posted our guidance on the website, and again, we'll just remind it because we want to make sure people know is that the remote option will remain available as per the requirements of Senate Bill 98. The specifics of the board approved plan: all students in preschool through grade 2 will be invited to return after 2 weeks in the red tier, and all students means the general ed and the students that are that have IEP. So everybody comes back with their grade level in all these phases. All students in grades 3 through 5 are invited to return the week after the pre-K through 2 students return. And then the proposal tonight, which we're seeking approval for, is that all students in grades 6 and 9, including the 6 through 12 moderate to severe SDC students, and all village and alternative ed students would be invited to return the week following the return of grades 3 through 5. And then all returning secondary students would be invited, remaining secondary students would be invited to return the following week. So that would be week 4. Mr. Bull already talked about the guidance with CIF, and we're very pleased that students are being able to return that way. We're also pleased that the school sites are beginning to think about ways to expand some of the other co-curricular activities on campus, and so that's good for kids. And again, with this, within secondary schools as well, we will maintain access to the remote learning option for all of our families. So with that, we're here to take questions.
Thank you very much for the update. So what we'll do is we'll go around and take questions from trustees, and then we'll take questions and comments from the community, and then we'll take comments and motions from the board. So, Trustee Carry-On, what questions do you have at this point?
I have 2 questions. One, Mr. Dialazzo, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but when do you expect us to be in the red tier? And when do you expect the kids actually to be back in school?
Wow, that's a tough question. So there is a process for districts to move from the tiers. And I don't have that directly in front of me, but once we the metrics show that we're in the lower tier. So we're in purple now, as we all know, but I believe it's 2 weeks. Don't quote me on that, but there's a process. I believe it's 2 weeks that we are meeting the red tier metrics. Then the county then puts us into that red tier.
So can I jump in, Ed?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so we've been in lots of conversations with the county health department about this specific issue, and as we referenced earlier, Mr. DeLasso spoke to the 18.1 rate. That is the case rate, the adjusted case rate for the county of Alameda, and that's the one metric that's holding us right now in the purple tier. We have to get below or to 7, I believe, right? Or is it
below 8?
Below 8. Okay, yeah. So we are moving in that direction, and we've been moving rapidly. And so in conversations with the health director this week and last, the indication was that the rate of decline in that metric is about 1%, roughly 1% per week, per day. And so if we stick with that same trajectory, then you could see us hitting the red data as soon as the 20th. But if you look at state guidance, it says 20th of February. So it says in the state guidance that you have to sit in the new tier for 3 weeks before the state will move you. So that's what the guidance says. But we all know that's not what happens, because we were here in October and we watched us go from purple to yellow across the course of 2 weeks. And so that's why it's difficult for us to say for certain when we think it's going to happen, because it's still not clear which standard the state's going to apply. You want to add to that?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Dr. Hagelin. The one metric that is actually already in the orange is that Healthy Places Index. So that helps us. So really, as Dr. Hagelin said, it's that case rate that we're waiting for. But thank you for that help there, Dr. Hagelin.
Okay, thank you. I just have one last question, and this is for Dr. Woodward. My question is about concurrent teaching. As a teacher of 33 years, I would have no idea how to actually do this. So my question is it actually being required, or do teachers have the freedom to teach the way that they feel is best for them? And is there being trainings?
Sure. Thank you so much for that question. So yes, this is the new strategy, and so we do have some teachers that have started kind of experimenting with it right now. There has been professional development, and more is coming on the way for secondary in 2 weeks. And this is not necessarily a choice, whether they want to do this or not, just because of the numbers of students that also need to be at home or that are choosing remote learning. So in the elementary, it's a little bit more doable because teachers have just one self-contained classroom, and it's divided into the morning and the afternoon. So there can be some creativity with some of the elementaries. And many of our elementary teachers have chosen to do the concurrent instruction so that they can keep all of their students and not need their students to shift to other classrooms. So the bonds that teachers have formed right now, we've been in remote learning for the entire year, and I've been in these classrooms. I can tell you they know their students, and their students know and love their teachers. So we definitely want to minimize the need for students to change classes. And so at the secondary level, we have started rolling out the professional development in terms of the technology, and we're pushing out resources. Resources went out this week on concurrent instruction. Professional development is forthcoming. But we expect that in almost every class, we will have students who will be remote learners and students who will be in the classroom. So we do want to emphasize that there will be a gradual transition in terms of us developing the ability to do concurrent instruction. That will take some practicing and some getting used to, because right now we don't have students in our classrooms, but we're confident that we will be able to implement this, and it will be a quality program as the year continues.
Thank you.
Trustee Maher, what questions do you have?
I got about three. One, Dr. Woodward, why, although I agree with the 6th and 9th grade orientation and so forth, why didn't we put them in the second week of the phase-in with the 3rd through the 5th so that we could still start the rest of the high school on that 3rd week? I'm really opposed to waiting another week to get the rest of the high school back. Is there a reason why we did that? Or why you're recommending that?
So recommending that our secondary students come back the week after our elementary students in grades 3 through 5, just to clarify the question?
No, not all the high school, but you're talking about the 6th and 9th grade, and I assume that's for orientation and new to middle school, new to high school, and so forth.
Yes.
My question is, why didn't we put them in that second week so that in the 3rd week we could start all the high school instead of wait another week to start the remainder of high school, which means it'd be another week they'd have to wait?
I'll give this my best shot, Mr. Maher, and then if I don't answer it, please go ahead and ask me again.
Well, maybe I'm not clear. Am I clear? Or?
So originally, when we decided this, it was based on the board's direction to bring back preschool through 2nd grade, and then the following week bring back 3rd through 5th grade, and then when we were in the red tier to be able to bring back our 6th through 12th grade. And originally we had planned to bring back our 6th through 12th grade students in a 3-week staggered return process, and now we've reduced it to a 2-week staggered return process. The reason that we're advocating that our 6th and 9th grade students, along with our moderate severe special day class students and village students, come back the week prior is that our 6th grade students and our 9th grade students have not been on their campuses before. And so we wanted to allow time for orientation. We wanted to allow time for them to get to know the lay of the land in terms of their classrooms, to be able to find all of their rooms. As well, we wanted to ensure that all of our special day class students were well oriented before the remainder of the students return to the campus.
Understand. I just, if they're going into a hybrid, they would be on campus 2 days for that week?
Correct.
Okay, what I'm suggesting is we cut it down to 1 day and make it the week before, like on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And that way we could bring our the rest of the high school back the 3rd week instead of the 4th week. That's just my concern.
I think I understand what you're talking about. That would require the the daily schedule then to change, because right now the reason that they come for 2 days is because on one day they'll have half of their classrooms in the classes in the block schedule, and on the second day they would have the other half. So if we were to modify that, they would need to come for all of their classes on the one day, and it would disrupt the entire school schedule for high school.
If they came on Tuesday, just did the Tuesday schedule. Let's say Monday's a holiday for them. Tuesday was a Tuesday schedule, and then half the other group came and did the Thursday schedule. It'd be like Friday was their holiday. Maybe I'm not sounding correct. I'm not sure, but I'm just concerned that the high school, the other grades are missing a week.
I understand that concern.
Okay, my next question is for Julio. Julio. Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're at 18.1, I heard today, and dropping quickly. And my understanding is that we, according to Dave, could be there by next week. What would we have to do to change or to begin the 2-week process? If we have the data, but let's say the county is messing around with declaring us red, or the state is taking their time to do that, although we have the red metrics all over the place. What would we have to do, besides hold a meeting, I'm sure, to get our process going and give an opening date, such as the first week in March?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Okay,
Is it
we have an
related
MOU
to?
right now that says 2 weeks in the red tier.
That's correct.
I guess what I'm saying is, do I have to wait, not me personally, but do we have to wait as a district till the county says, now we're in the red tier? Or once we're in the red tier data, or we have red tier data, which I think we will have next week. We have 2 of them this week. Next week, we should have the other point in the red tier. Excuse me, I think I said blue, but red tier. I don't want to wait for the state to bless it as such before we set our 2 weeks to open. If we can get the data, we know we have the data, it continues to go down, what would it take for us to say, hey, we're going to open up here 2 weeks after today?
Well, it's a complicated question. If it's related to negotiations, I could probably answer it that way, or if it's related to the current board direction. So the current board direction was to open after being in the red tier for 2 weeks.
Okay, I'm not arguing that, but I'm saying if we have the data that says we're in the red tier.
So let me jump in just for a second if I can, Julio. The situation that we're in, Steve, with regard to secondary is that it's the state's definition of the red tier that will allow us to move in opening secondary schools. So currently, until the county is in the red tier, we are not authorized to open secondary schools.
Yeah, I know that. I'm keenly aware of that.
I guess my point is that even if we were to say we're going to follow this criteria for what red tier means versus what they say the criteria is, we would be
No,
precluded
it'd be
from
the
opening.
county's criteria. I'm not thinking of making it up myself. If the county comes in next week on Thursday and says, you're now at 8 and the other 2 data points are still below, that would be the red tier. What I'm asking is, do we have to wait until the state blesses that we're in the red tier?
Based on what I know today, we have to follow the state's guidance. Could that potentially change? Can we advocate for that to change? Certainly.
Trustee Maher, are you speaking specifically about the secondary school recommendation, or
No,
about?
just to start our opening with the primary. Just to start. And then follow our plan that we had. See, I believe we're going to be in the red tier next week. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that towards the end of next week, we're going to be at least we'll have the red tier data. Okay. What I would like to do is then give the 2 weeks so we can start opening up our schools, which will be the first part of March. And I'm frustrated, quite frankly, and upset, not at the district certainly, but that if we have to wait for because we have the MOU, and we have to wait for the state to say, okay, now you're in the red, when we've been in the red for maybe a week or so. It just keeps putting things off, and that I find that very frustrating for me, and I'm sure for a lot of parents, and probably for you too, David, for that matter, and Janelle too. I'm not saying anything that you're not. We would probably have to have an emergency meeting, and then make a new direction, and then we have to have a new MOU, Julio.
So I could answer the MOU question. So the MOU came about based on the direction of the board to start 2 weeks into the red tier.
Right.
Who determines when we are in that red tier? As Dr. Haglund just stated, we're following the state guidance in that. So we did establish an MOU with APT with that understanding. Should the board give a different direction, we would need to renegotiate with our association.
How long did it take the last time we negotiated?
Well, we have 3 MOUs. The initial MOU at the August 11th, there was a number probably close to maybe 12, 13 sessions. We had about 3 sessions to negotiate an MOU with transition dates in about 2 days. That was because we were going to start with the direction of the board January 4th, and then we were not able to do so because of the changing of the tier system. And then we had to then renegotiate that MOU, I believe in maybe 2 days, which is the current MOU that was approved December 17th, which established the guidance from the board of being in the red.
So at that time, that was appropriate. I'm not questioning that we did that. I guess what I'm questioning is if we had to renegotiate, and I don't need to know how many times you negotiated, but is it a 2-week process, 3-week process, 4-week process? Because that would delay everything.
So again, it would take our partners of APT in the district to negotiate in good faith and attempt to get to a resolution quickly. Again, when we negotiated the dates right before we went to winter break, it was about a 2-day process to get to those dates. Again, I cannot predict our association's willingness or ability, but I trust that they will be negotiated in good faith to get to a changed MOU with specific dates as far as the orientation and transitioning. So Trustee Mahar, to give you a specific how many days it will take to negotiate, that's a complicated question. As you know, negotiation is a back and forth process.
I guess what I'm getting at, if I tried to put, not me personally, but if I was trying to move forward with some type of motion, not tonight, but to try to open school once we get into the red tier data, and if I had the feeling that means we have to renegotiate the MOU, and that's going to take us 3 or 4 weeks, then I'm delaying what we're doing. And I'm not sure if I'm clear, but I'm trying not to delay when we get our kids back. San Ramon is back, and our data is better than theirs, our county's data.
I'm not quite sure how to answer that question, Trustee Mahar. I could only say that I will do my best faith effort.
I know you are, Julio. I'm not. Please don't take this as criticism or anything like that. I know you're working daily on it, and spending hours. I know that, and so maybe I'm asking the teachers. Maybe they need to get together with you and discuss that in the Teachers Union Association, because most teachers I've been hearing from, thank you for the 2 weeks. Okay, next week we get into the data or get into the criteria that we set. Now the state hasn't set it yet, but our county has told us about it. Okay, let's go. 2 weeks. You know, it's just frustrating. I shouldn't be, but I'm at the point now where I am. And so at that, I'm finished with my questions.
You done with your questions? Okay. Trustee McCoskey, what questions do you have?
Well, just to piggyback off of what Trustee Maher is saying, so if the board changed direction and hypothetically aligned with the county guidelines for reopening secondary 5 days after it hits the 5 days into the red tier, the MOU with APT would need to be renegotiated. Is that what I'm understanding? Mr. Hernandez?
So the current MOU states that we will start preschool second grade 2 weeks into the red tier. So because that was the plan that the board approved. The current plan that's before the board, there hasn't been any direction given as to if the board will adopt the proposed plan that the staff is recommending. So if the board decides to reopen secondary, our MOU does state that it doesn't have a date. It just says the 4 days preceding the opening of that section because it separates elementary with secondary. So to be clear, we wouldn't have to renegotiate that change in secondary because it does sparse it out. Secondary does any event, but elementary is pretty specific.
Right, no, I was asking about secondary though.
Yes, well, secondary, there is no direction yet from the board.
Okay.
So once that direction is given, in our MOU, it does say that respectively, once elementary and secondary open, the assumption is that the orientation date and the transition days will be 4 days preceding that opening.
Okay,
And we
great.
can't technically at this point open until we're in the red for secondary, but
So, and then Dr. Woodward, I just have one question for you on the secondary parent guardian choice commitment results. Did you say you're planning to reach out to the 1,990 students that did not complete the survey, correct?
So, yes, we are going to need to do some sort of confirmation process. We did this with elementary, in which we just let the families know that this is what, our records tell us that this is what you selected, and so that we can reach out in that way. There's also a request to do a survey of our students who would be coming in hybrid to see if they would need to use the wheels transportation, so we could tie it into that. For those students who did not submit a survey, we are discussing right now the different ways that we might want to just reach out to them to confirm that they know that they're going into remote learning. And so
Okay.
there will be some follow-up on that.
Okay, great, because looking at that chart of analysis, if you do reach out to them and get more information, I think it's really important to keep in mind that when you look at the remote column, that, as you mentioned, that combines basically students who want to be remote, as well as that lump sum of those who did not respond. So it really impacts that data and how that's being analyzed, and it inflates that number. So if you break that out and get more information, it would be really helpful to break that down, because if you take out, basically it's roughly, you say 23.8% respondents did not respond to that survey, and so that's a pretty big percentage. So if you actually take that number out, hybrid, it's really more of a 2-to-1. For every two students who selected hybrid, it was really only one who selected remote. So it really does skew the data a little bit. So any additional information you get will really help us understand who really wants to be hybrid and who wants to be remote. I think that would just clarify a little bit of the data. So that's just an observation. Those are all my questions right now. I know we have a lot of speakers. Vice President Miller, so those are all my questions for right now.
So piggyback on that for a second, though, Patrick, I wonder if you could bring up the slide that shows the pie chart for the responses really quickly, or whoever was running that.
That would be slide 16. Thank you.
So it does say there, okay, so I just wanted to be sure of this. So it says, if we assumed all the people who didn't respond were we're going to be in remote. Does that, were those numbers factored into the numbers that are remote on that slide?
Yes, we actually looked at it a variety of ways. So initially, we had it broken down just by the students who had responded, and then that brought us up to about maybe 57, 60% on some of them that would come back in hybrid as opposed to remote. But then we took the remote, those who had not been assigned to remote learning, they hadn't completed a survey, and we added that to the pie chart. I do want to say that we sent out several reminders this past week. Not only did we send out email reminders, but our principals also did auto dialers, and I know that it was posted to different social media. So we really tried to layer our approach to reaching out to families so that they were aware that this was coming. In addition, we did our high school town hall the previous week and then our middle school town hall this week, and alerted students that these surveys would be coming and that if they did not select an option, it would default to remote.
Okay.
Sure. Dr. Woodward, I just wanted to clarify that I was just looking at it from a strict data perspective. It helps to disaggregate that data out so we can get a clear picture of who wanted hybrid and who wanted remote. I know you made extensive efforts to get a response rate, and actually a 76.2 response rate is amazing. So I wanted to just clarify, I was just looking at it more of a data perspective to really understand who truly wants hybrid versus who truly wants remote, to separate those who didn't respond. So thank you.
Kelly, I did the math this afternoon that you're asking, and remote, those survey, in other words, they didn't fill in a survey. Middle school is about 800 or so did not. I think Janelle says right there what it is. They didn't do it. That's why they got put into remote. Same with the high school, the 1,129 students, they didn't respond. So, and as we told them, they would go into remote. Now, Dr. Woodard, I know, is in the middle school or secondary principals are going to reach out this week and the coming week to really beat the bushes to see what they're going to do, because messages could have gone in spam, could have been a lot of things. The other thing, teachers may have students in their class, and if they find out which students haven't responded, maybe they can ask those students, what are you going to do? Because what my biggest fear is, on the first day, we have 300 kids at each site show up. Hey, where's my class?
So it's kind of interesting because anecdotally I've heard that if the students were offered this choice, the numbers would be different, more towards the remote. Okay, next question. So Trustee Carrion asked a good question about concurrent teaching. I don't know how to ask this in a diplomatic way, but is there a way for us to sort of guess or whatever assess the quality impact of teaching in a concurrent model versus what they're getting in remote?
That is a very interesting question. I can tell you what the teaching is like in remote because I'm in those classes. I've watched a lot of different videos that teachers have made across the country that are doing concurrent teaching. I will say that there's a learning curve, just like there was a learning curve when we first went into remote learning in the spring. And so we can expect it to get better over time. I would expect that our site administrators, and I know I'll be joining on class visits, we'll be in classrooms with our teachers when we do our visits, seeing how that is going. And of course, we really liked having our town halls during the advisory periods. So it might be that we are able to get some feedback from our students, both who are at remote, how is it working for them, and in the classroom. What I can tell you is for the schools that have come back and have done concurrent teaching, the benefit of having their classes, being in class with their teachers, just for the social emotional connection, has resulted in those students really engaging more in the academic side. And so, and those who are working from remote have continued to be able to attain the material as well. So we will definitely have our eyes on that moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. So So now you get to get the crystal ball from Mr. Dialazzo here. So thinking ahead to 2021, 22, it's possible. Do you think it's possible that we will still be in a bifurcated teaching situation where some people will be remote and some people will be in person, and therefore my follow-on question to that is would the learning curve be accelerated if we started doing that this year for being able to be successful there?
So if I might, I'll answer the second part first. Yes, the learning curve, we will be further along, and we will be better equipped and prepared to handle a modified form of instruction in the upcoming school year, whatever that might be. So it's our belief that we have to have several different options or scenarios as to how we could begin the year. We need to have the best case, which is we can fully open our schools. I think we're all keeping our fingers crossed that that would be a possibility. We also need to have the worst case, in which there is a regression and we have higher cases of COVID and need to start in remote. We already know how to do that. That's the good news. Start in some sort of a blended model where we reduce the number of students on campus at one time. We will know how to do that in the hybrid because we expect that we will have students back this year. So we'll know how to do that in the 2-1-2 model. From our experience this year in the 2-1-2 model, we will find out if this is something we would want to replicate again next year if we had to. Now, we're also thinking about other models, and we're getting some input from our teachers and our stakeholders, and we will engage them as well as time goes on in the discussion. There are some other things that we could do. There's different ways to block the classes, not a block schedule, but you block them and you have less classes for a certain amount of weeks, and then you get those classes done. So there's a lot of different aspects that we can consider. So we're thinking about that. There are discussions that are beginning to arise now regarding what that might look like. I see us having several different options that would also have stakeholder input that we could consider for next year.
Yeah, that's great.
The only other thing I would bring up is that we've come so far right now in our ability to use technology effectively. We also have to consider the needs of the students who love remote learning and what that schedule might be like for them next year too, learning what we have this year.
Interesting, yeah. Okay, well.
So I'm going to jump in there even though you didn't ask me to.
Please.
I want kids back.
Yeah.
I think we all agree with that.
Right,
I don't think
right.
anybody's saying we don't
Absolutely.
want that to happen. So we need to be working between now and the beginning of the school year to have a solution that works so kids are back on campus. Families still have the option for remote, as Dr. Woodward just said. But what I don't want to do is continue this fear that this horrible world that we're living in right now is just going to continue on and on and on and on. There are pieces of the educational experience that are related to social interaction that are not occurring right now. And we need to get that opportunity back in the hands of kids, and we need, frankly, our staff wants to have that interaction with their kids too. So we need to let go of the fear that this is going to go on forever, and just know that we're not going to settle for that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I certainly agree. I guess I'm just trying to get to the point of, is there actually, are there going to be some concerns with going, back, in the hybrid model this year, and also benefits because we'll get some learning and stuff like that, because the reality is probably going to be some sort of a blend. With as many people on campus as possible. Right, yeah. Okay, next question I have is around masking protocols. So I saw a really interesting presentation by Dr. Jean Noble from UCSF. She's an ER nurse and deals with COVID patients and so forth. And, you know, and couple that with the very recent, I mean, today or yesterday, you know, revised guidance from the CDC around masking and how effective it truly is. And I'm now, well, I was always a believer in masks, but I'm even more a believer. I mean, she really believes that you can achieve, I think, 96% effectiveness of avoiding transmission by wearing masks. But my question is around the protocols. So have we thought about how we're going to enforce masking in the hybrid model?
Masking is required for students to come back to school.
Yes.
They
Well,
yes,
yeah.
everyone must wear a mask. They must wear it correctly. It needs to be worn over the nose. So I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Well, I'm just thinking of, you know, penalties for not. I mean, they really go to great lengths of, you know, you have to leave campus if you're not wearing a mask.
Well,
or,
it's
you know,
one of the
whatever.
benefits of having the remote program, because if they can't figure out how to wear a mask at school, they can
back
go
to
into remote learning.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure because I think that's really important. All right, that is all the questions I have. Trustees, any other questions before we go to the community?
Trustee.
I'll wait till after the
Vice
community
President.
comments.
Go ahead, Trustee Makashi.
Vice President, Trustee Miller, just to piggyback off of what you were saying with the presentation of Dr. Noble, they talked about specific protocols in terms of, for example, an anonymous tip line. So if someone came in and saw either a child or a teacher not wearing a mask properly, there was a protocol in place to help share that information. And I think that's some of the protocols that you were talking about that Dr. Noble really outlined very specific suggestions, and also, you know, really the layering that you have, you know, make sure that the mask is over your nose and all the way to your chin, and really highlighted some research about the science that supports even the distancing from 4 to 6 feet is like a guideline, but it's really the masking up that is most essential. And so to think about what kind of protocols to help ensure that that's in place, because there's a recent study, I believe it was from North Carolina, and Pediatric Journal, that showed that the case rate was really very low in terms of issues with COVID on school premises. So I think that's some of the protocols that that we're kind of thinking about to kind of flush that out.
Trustee Maher, did you have something more?
I'll wait to after all the parents. They want to speak, I'm sure,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
you'll probably bring it back to us. I have only one comment, so I'll do it then.
Okay, let's go to our public comments.
All right. First up this evening, we will have Thrishna Gojaneni, followed by Steve Padden, and then David. So Thrishna, if you're with us, go ahead. All right. We will move on to Steve Padden. Steve, if you're able to take yourself off mute. All right, we'll swing back around. Next is David, followed by Luciana, and then Jeffrey West.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm David, and I'm here to urge the district to take the necessary actions to prevent our kids from losing their education. Alameda County has already given the green light for elementary schools to reopen in purple. The case rate is below 25 and 100,000. We've now been below that metric for 10 days. Dan Ramon started in-person learning this week. Wayne County's been in person since last fall with no evidence of a resulting increase in COVID cases. I think whatever the rationale is that is currently keeping Pleasanton from reassessing their previous school opening plan, it's clearly wrong-headed and is negatively impacting our students. Our schools need to be open now, not in a month or 2 months or 3 months. Our kids have already lost 10 months of learning. Many are depressed, some are suicidal, and none of them have learned much the past year. Please figure out a way to get our schools back open. Other districts are doing it. Pleasanton should be able to do it as well. We need our schools open now, but not just for 2 days a week or a few hours a day, or not on Wednesdays, or whatever the current restrictions are. We need to get the kids back to full-time in-person instruction, even if it's on a hybrid basis for the short term. We also need to maximize in-person teaching time as much as we can. At other schools, teachers teach Monday through Friday. Why not Pleasanton? Why is Wednesday a day off in Pleasanton? Other schools teach 5 days a week, and Pleasanton should be able to as well. In Pleasanton, they only have learning 4 hours a day. I don't know, why is that? You know, we need to get back to full time. Our kids have just lost too much education to continue this part-time approach. Alameda County recommends opening the secondary schools after 5 days in the red tier. I think we should do that. Pleasanton should revise their own reopening plan to follow the county's guidance for both primary and secondary education. Thank you.
Thanks. Luciana?
Okay, so our next speaker is Luciana, but we do not see a Luciana in the attendee list. So if you're here, you can quickly raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll keep moving. All right, our next speaker is Jeffrey West. And it doesn't look like we have Jeffrey West with us, so I will move on to Karen Shin. She has her hand raised. It's Corinne. It might be Corinne Shin.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Great, thank you. Hi, my name is Karen Shin, and I'm a mom of 3 high school students at Foothill High School. It's hard to beat a person who never gives up. Babe Ruth. Nothing in life that's worth anything is easy. Barack Obama. I attribute my success to this. I never gave or took an excuse. Florence Nightingale. When everything seems to be going against you, remember that the airplane takes off against the wind, not with it. Henry Ford. Falling down is an accident, staying down is a choice. As a mom, these are the things I've been telling my children since they were little. Whenever they struggled, when life got hard for one reason or another, and they desperately wanted to give in and give up, I have always felt a responsibility to instill in them courage, strength, perseverance, and hope. It was my job as a parent to teach my children that when life gets hard, we try harder to focus on the greater goal. I ask you, board members, what message are we telling our kids now? After the data and science tells us it's okay to open schools, that it can be done safely. And yet here we are, months and months later, still talking, going in circles, choosing to stay down instead of getting up, excusing instead of solving. I ask you, board members, who among you has the courage, strength, perseverance, and hope to stop talking and start taking action and be the role models that our children so desperately need? And I'll leave you with this quote by Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to circle back because I know that she's a student. We have Thrishna with us, or Thrisha, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent, and everyone. I'm Trisha Gogineni, a 9th grade student from Foothill High School. I want to thank the board, QSC staff, and teachers for doing an outstanding job during the pandemic. I want to share my experience about remote learning and would like to bring your attention the benefits of remote learning. My grades are better as I'm getting more time to study, eating healthy food, and able to sleep 7+ hours every day. During school, I skip lunch many days as I have to go to the teacher's classroom to ask questions. With remote learning, I never skip lunch as teachers had office hours. I'm able to start homework in between classes and finish assignments sooner. Mental health is better. I don't have to deal with bullies, mean comments, and peer pressure with remote learning. Physical health is good, and this is the first time I did not get sick this year during the flu season. Every year for the last several years, I used to miss school for several days. Someone at school gave me the flu during the flu season. I'm exercising 5 days a week and able to do the other extracurricular activities. In my case, remote learning benefits outweighs in-person learning benefits. Better grades, better mental health, better physical health, eating healthy food, and sleeping 7+ hours. There are many students like me who are reaping the benefits of remote learning. Going forward, many companies are planning to allow their employees to work remotely as they saw the benefits of remote working. Similarly, I would like to request the board to consider offering remote learning as an option for students like me for the next academic year. Remote learning benefits outweigh in-person learning benefits. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Frederick Peterson.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for taking my comment. I think it's looking pretty good now with Alameda County and California state guidelines here. The numbers are looking good, and according to the guidelines, we can actually open our elementary schools now. We're below the 25 daily cases per 100,000 people. And as soon as we are in red tier, the guidelines say that we can open after 5 days for middle school and high school. So we don't need to wait for another 4 or 5 weeks as was initially proposed. We can do it much faster than that and still follow the guidelines. It's also looking pretty good with, if you look at the schools, other schools in the Bay Area that has already opened. I read today in San Jose Mercury News, schools in Palo Alto, Marin County, they have been open since last fall, and the results have been successful. There have been no outbreaks, no incidents. So this is looking very good. And as was mentioned earlier, San Ramon schools just opened this week. So another data point here is that the CDC director last week stated that we can open schools safely, and teacher vaccination is not a prerequisite for opening the schools. So the science and the data are here now. And I would say finally, I totally agree that Pleasanton students, they deserve the best. So let's not delay. Let's open now. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Finn McShane, followed by Kirsten Cash, and then Shannon Henderson. So Finn, if you're with us, go ahead. Finn will be with us in just a second.
Hi, my name is Finn McShane, and I am in
second grade at Valley View dual immersion. I asked the trustees in October why my friends were leaving for private school and going to the new schools without any problems. But they're still going to school without any issues. And now I have friends who live in Danville that are going back. Remote learning stinks. It's really hard to focus because my little brother's always jumping on me and my little sister draws on the floor with Sharpies and spills water on my desk. My dad is always saying he's on a work call, can't help. My mom is trying to help my brother find a glue stick or do everything because he's 5 and he can't read. And my assignments are really hard to figure out on my own. Some grown-ups say this is a good lesson for us. It was a good lesson. I can do hard things, but I got it by now. Lesson learned. I know it hasn't always been up to you to let us go back, but I also know that it is your choice to let us go back to school now. Please change your minds and let us go back now. And if not, can't you just cancel the rest of the year and we'll just play all day?
All right, not seeing a Kirsten Cash. We'll move on to Shannon Henderson, followed by Kevin Thompson, and then Jason Bennett.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, I was born and raised in Pleasanton, but I sure wish I lived in San Ramon right about now. Like Dr. Haglund just said, and I quote, "We are well below the state and county requirements to open up," end quote. So why are we not open? It is okay to change the plan. Let's renegotiate if that's what we need to do. But waiting for the county to put us officially in red, like Trustee Maher said, is just more wasted time. Let's open now. I'd given up listening to these board meetings because I felt like parents' voices were going unheard. But I got all heated up again on Tuesday night when I was listening in on my kindergarten meeting for my daughter that starts school in the fall. There was a Q&A section, and my question was the only one not answered. You know what it was? Will school be open in the fall? Are you serious? At least give me something. All your board meeting discussions sound really good, but actions speak louder than words. We are able to open now, so open. I run in a small circle. One family left in November, and another just announced they're moving too. Why? Because their kids deserve better. I'd leave too, except I have my son at a private school in Livermore that is finally teaching him to read, something PUSD never managed to do. They've been in person the entire school year with no COVID cases, and there is concurrent teaching happening there too, Trustee Miller. I have 3 school-age kids. They were all enrolled with you at the beginning of the year, and now none of them are enrolled with you. Next year, I'll have 4 school-age kids, including my future kindergartner. And unless you present a reopening plan that promises us back to school ASAP, you can plan on none of my children enrolled again, AKA $50,000 of student funding. And I'd encourage others to do the same.
Okay, next we have Kevin Thompson, followed by Jason Bennett, and then Laura Hall.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
I support the decision to reopen all schools. Pleasanton and Alameda County are currently in the purple tier and within the limits to open K through 6 today. Please start with any school that is eligible. Open the schools, open PUSD. Thank you.
All right, Jason Bennett, if you'll take yourself off mute, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jason Bennett, and I am a 6th grader at Hart Middle School, and I want to go back to school. I've been here for almost a year, and I'm tired of it. It's very hard to focus in distance learning. I am looking at a screen for hours, and I am not communicating with any other students. I try to talk to some friends on Zoom, Almost possible. In real school, we need to do hands-on lessons, also interact with classmates in the process. In distance learning, the only way to communicate with my teachers is by email or office hours if they have them. Sometimes they can't get back to me for a long time. Before quarantine and distance learning, I played 3 sports and was excited to play sports for her. Now, I spend most of my days at my house without friends. I am even sick and tired of playing video games. I miss the friendships that I've made through sports, and I am sad that I have not made any new friends this year. In-person school used to make me feel happy, motivated, and energized. Distance learning makes me feel frustrated and stressed. I am worried that schools are not going to open soon enough. Please open all schools as soon as you can. I know many of my friends feel the same way, and we are counting on you to help us. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next we have Laura Hall, followed by Frida Moser, and then Jory Pratt.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, board and district staff members. I've been speaking and emailing with you all about getting back to in-person teaching for about 5 months now. I feel like I've been nice and patient for these 5 months, but I am no longer feeling nice or patient about it. I'm asking the board to step up and take a stand to open our elementary schools immediately and not wait until we are in the red tier. I'm so frustrated with this board and the whole process. I know you say we are all in this together, but I also feel alone in the fight for my kids to return to school. Every single group from the White House and the CDC to the many local medical professionals in the pediatric field are all saying the same thing. It is time to open our schools immediately. So why are we waiting? Doctors from the Southern California chapter of pediatrics recently stated, "We are causing undue harm to millions of children by keeping schools closed for this long." You, as an elected school board, are the ones causing undue harm to our children by keeping our schools closed. You have the opportunity to open schools now, but you are waiting. You can push for schools to reopen now, but you are waiting. You are responsible for our children's quality of education, and you have failed to deliver. We as a community voted you into these elected roles for our school board. We trusted you to take care of our children and their education. We trusted you to do the right thing and provide the best education for our kids. You have failed our children. You either stand for opening our schools safely now, or you stand against our kids, and you are enabling the mounting mental anguish, emotional suffering, and academic decline they have been enforced to endure. Enough is enough. It is up to you to do the right thing for our kids. They deserve the best, and the best thing for our kids is opening now. And as President Larson said way back in October, we have to start, or there will always be a reason to not try to come back into what we consider to be a better teaching model than remote teaching. I believe Pleasanton students deserve the best, and the best is our teachers in person. To all the members of the school board, we have waited long enough for you to act, and we are tired of waiting. Open our schools now.
Okay, next we have Frida Moser, followed by Jory Pratt, and then Steve Padden.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Frida Moser, and we have 2 high schoolers. I am a realtor and I help people buy and sell their homes. Why did we pick Pleasanton 10 years ago? The number one reason is that we feel we can trust Pleasanton schools for our young children. I am not confident to make the same statement now. With the school reopened in several districts in California and out of state, I have known some families are moving or have plans to transfer to other schools or sending their students to private schools. Some of my home buyers are choosing San Ramon and Danville over Pleasanton now because Danville and San Ramon shows the care about their students' education and well-being more than Pleasanton. Please don't allow PUSD to do more damages to our home value. And please don't allow PUSD to overlook the needs for in-person instruction. With just under half of high school families want to return to school, we demand PUSD to open the doors to these students back to school 5 days after we are in red tier, and offer in-person instruction 4 days a week. Doing enough is not for Pleasanton. PUSD need to do better. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Jory Pratt, followed by Steve Padden, and then Kate Duggan.
Hi, good evening. I'm a high school teacher in Pleasanton Unified, and I have grave concerns regarding the district's current 2-1-2 hybrid reopening model. First, the model does not follow the state's guidelines for small, stable groups of students. Those guidelines are meant to mitigate community spread and must be followed in order to safely open schools. In the proposed 2-1-2 model, there'll be no way to efficiently quarantine exposed students and teachers if students go to 6 different classes, each with different student groups, in 2 days, in addition to sports and clubs. The majority of secondary students will be continuing with the remote learning option. In order to concurrently teach in the 2-1-2 model, I will have to scrap all group work. Math distance students cannot interact with each other or their remote peers. There will be 19 people in one room trying to speak through masks in Zoom breakout rooms at the same time. There's a reason we all lock ourselves in a quiet, isolated room to use Zoom. Background noise makes it impossible. Because the district eliminated the planned flex option for remote students, the majority of my students will only be interacting with me over Zoom while I am in a noisy room. I will be trying to speak over that noise while wearing 2 masks pursuant to the CDC's updated mask guidelines in light of the more highly contagious COVID variants, causing greater inequity for our deaf and hard of hearing students. I'll be distracted, and I will not be able to answer remote students' questions in chat. While I'm looking at my computer, I will be unable to monitor mask wearing in the classroom. The majority of my students will have a drastically worse experience with remote learning. The in-person students in front of me will be masked, distanced, still listening to instruction over Zoom, and working on the exact same electronic work they received during remote learning. In-person learning is not going to cure the effects of this pandemic, nor will it be normal. We must understand that. I cannot in good conscience do this to any of my students. I implore you to listen to educators and administrators rather than the vocal and privileged minority, and follow health guidelines and common sense as you design our in-person learning models. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Kate Duggan, followed by Shelby Salonga, and then Griffin Kennitzer. I'm sorry. The next is Steve Patton. I apologize.
Can you hear me?
Sure. Yes,
Can you
go
hear me?
ahead.
Thank you. First, I want to say that I really appreciate what the board and the teachers have done for our community. Thank you all for what you're doing in these challenging times. It is very appreciated. And I love the progress I'm hearing on the subject of reopening that I'm hearing tonight. For my part, I wish to present the following proposal with respect to opening our schools as soon as possible. First, we know that the districts are opening now while still in the purple tier. As Mr. Maher pointed out, our county numbers qualify to do the same now with our elementary schools. We know many parents are ready and willing to bring their children back into the classrooms. I am one of them and have enjoyed one of my children being back at school in a small cohort at Walnut Grove since last fall. It's been an absolute privilege to be included in that program. We have administrators who have prepared our schools with all the new safety precautions that they are aware of, and they have told us that they are ready and waiting also. And we have teachers who are willing and ready to go back into the classroom right now. I know this because they have spoken to me directly, and they tell me they have reached out to the district leadership as well. The public does not know this because they have only spoken in private out of fear of offending their peers. However, these teachers have complained to me that the union leadership is not also representing their views on reopening. So from my view, there's only one thing preventing at least some of our children from returning to the classroom, and it's the closed doors of our schools. We all know and appreciate that nothing can replace the added emotional benefits of peer-to-peer learning, of social emotional connections, and of unspoken communications that can only happen in person. These have been missing since last March, and our children's education continues to suffer because of this. So I implore you, open the doors of our schools now to all of us who want to be there. Thank you for your consideration.
All right, now we have Kate Duggan, followed by Shelby Salonga, and then Griffin Kennitzer.
Hello. I was surprised to hear from APT that they still believe MOU negotiations are ongoing when I hear on the flip side from the district that we already have one from December that's ready to go. And as a reminder, vaccinations are not a requirement to reopen schools since masking, distancing, filtration systems, and a testing provider are in place as other mitigating safety measures, which have been proven to prevent transmission in schools. I would love to be all in this together. Parents are ready, and indeed the district seems to have put in hundreds of hours of work to get ready, which I really appreciate. But I still hear association leads who still ask for standards that are much higher than what state and county public health experts advise on. It's so strange to hear teachers contradict health experts. I asked my son's school in December, please, is there any way my child can join the special after-school on-site cohort? He's really suffering. And the response that I got was, I'm sorry, it's not possible. This option is still undergoing bargaining. I had to look that up. I didn't know why I was being told about bargaining in response to my child having a hard time. So it turns out my kid can't go because of a labor dispute. This response really erodes my trust in public education. It erodes my trust that public education is a resource my family can count on. This is an institution that's now actually causing harm to some kids. So at this point, the community is breaking up over schools instead of coming together. We really should be there for each other, but the more obstacles I hear when we haven't even tried to go back to schools yet, is that we're just not getting there. This will impact the district for years to come since families like mine have to think about going elsewhere. I don't want to leave. I love it here, but when you give up on my kids, I may have to do the same for you.
All right, next we have Shelby Salonga, followed by Griffin Kennitzer, and then Lena Bravo.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees and district staff. We are now 11 months into the pandemic, closing in on 1 year that our students have not returned to the classroom. I know everyone is exhausted and your efforts have not gone unnoticed. Now is the time to dig deep and get this done. This week, we watched a number of Bay Area districts welcome their elementary students back on campus. The feelings conveyed in photos showed optimism, hope, and excitement. It was wonderful to see. Our Pleasanton students deserve this same opportunity. At the January 28th board meeting, the district presented a plan that would have allowed elementary students to return once the county met the state guidelines. The county has now met these guidelines and elementary schools could be open. The district is ready. Figure out the best path forward to get all of our students back on campus as soon as possible. And don't let a previous motion hold our students back. As we were reminded at the last meeting, the board, the district, and the union are not public health experts. Public health guidance exists for these circumstances. We do not need to spend any more time discussing whether it is safe enough to return to school. The CDC, California's Safe Schools for All framework, and Alameda County's reopening guidelines all address the requirements for a safe reopening. Vaccines are not required, and while we all hope that these get rolled out quickly, this should not stop us and should not be part of our reopening plan. The district has a COVID safety plan and our school sites can meet these guidelines. Please do not wait any longer. I ask you to reconsider the timeline, not because I'm privileged, not because I don't want to deal with my children, not because my kids haven't managed remote learning well, but because my children and all children in this district deserve an in-person education, and the guidelines allow us to do this safely. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Griffin Kennitzer, followed by Lena Bravo, and then Jenna Hewitt-King.
Griffin Kennitzer. I am 10 years old and I'm a 4th grader at Alisal Elementary School. I think it is necessary to have school in person so we can socialize and learn. It's been really hard to be on a computer for so many hours every day. Last night I was watching the news with my family, and I was happy to see that there were kids in Danville going back to school. But why can't we go back to school in Pleasanton if they can in Danville? I have learned from my parents that elementary schools will open first, and that's great, but I feel really bad for my older brother and sister. They are in middle school and high school, and they really miss being on campus too. Please allow all of us to go back to school as soon as possible.
All right, next we have Lena Bravo, followed by Jenna Hewitt King, and then Julie Brown. Lena, if you just take yourself off mute, you can go ahead. All right, we'll keep going, but we can come back to you. Next is Jenna Hewitt King. Jenna Hewitt King.
Good evening. I am here tonight to speak as a high school teacher in Pleasanton Unified. I am encouraged by the board maintaining the plan to not open our schools in person until we've been in the red tier for at least 2 weeks. I believe that this will allow teachers and staff to make sure that our campuses are ready for student return, and will also allow for us to ensure that we have the technology that the district has ordered for us, which has not been delivered, to ensure that we can effectively do concurrent learning in the way that they'd like us to. I'm also grateful to see that county guidance coming directly from health and safety experts is guiding our conversations. I do have some concerns, however, with the proposed secondary schedule that I hope you'll consider in your conversations as we move forward. Particularly, the district named in the presentation that one of the most important guidelines in regards to the safety of staff and students is the facilitation of small, stable groups. The proposed model would not allow for that, as the stable cohorts would be about 500 students based on the data collected from secondary families this week. With this many students that travel from classroom to classroom multiple times throughout the day, it's going to be difficult to logistically manage both physical distancing and mask wearing outside of the classroom. Aside from the health and safety concerns, though, we can't ignore the impact concurrent teaching and learning will have on both teacher effectiveness and student engagement. What will likely occur is something I heard a colleague describe as Zoom in 3D, where the students in our room are just staring at their screen while the teacher tries to respond to Zoom chats, responses, students' live comments in the room as well. If we're going to move forward with reopening secondary schools this year, I urge you and ask you to please reconsider this proposed concurrent schedule and invite teachers to the table to help determine a solution that is both safe and effective for student learning. Please believe us teachers when we tell you that we want nothing more than to be back in our classrooms with our students. Pleasanton students and staff deserve to have safe and healthy schools during the pandemic. Thank you for helping ensure that that happens.
All right, we're going to try Lena Bravo one more time. Lena, go ahead.
Thank you.
If you want to mute your Zoom recording while you speak, that'll help with the reverb.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, and thank you to the Board of Trustees for this opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Lena Bravo, and I'm the parent of 2 Foothill student athletes, a senior and a freshman. I've emailed you several times during this pandemic and spoken of how they've both been negatively impacted by remote learning this school year. After 300 plus days and many hundreds of hours on Zoom, one of my sons is in therapy due to depression, and the other is barely hanging on by a thread. The news reports are creeping closer to home of teens committing suicide and turning to juvenile delinquent behavior. And honestly, I'm afraid for my son's mental and physical health. I'm asking that you please readjust the opening plan to align with the state guidelines for K through 12. For elementary, we don't need to be in red. We can reopen now because our case count is below the threshold and we see our neighboring counties and cities opening. And for secondary schools, the guidance allows for them to reopen after 5 days in the red tier. So I ask that you consider to make the adjustment to align with the county guidelines rather than more waiting. The science is there, and according to the survey, roughly only half the student body wants to come back to campus. So in closing, I implore you to consider the mental and emotional toll that remote learning has taken on my children and others, and take a stand for them rather than making them flounder in remote learning any longer. Thank you.
All right, next we have Julie Brown, followed by Mary Gunson, and then Brooke Carusi.
Good evening, trustees, staff. I'd like to discuss 3 issues tonight. First, according to the survey results, less than 50% of the secondary students intend to return for in-person learning. If you include those students who did not respond and will be automatically placed in remote, there's probably 35 to 40% of students who will be returning. With that information, we should no longer be talking about sending the kids back in A and B groups for just 2 mornings. Send the returning kids back 4 days a week. Do the math. Dr. Woodard talked about that we'd have to figure out exactly what that would be, but do the math and see that it will work. Second, with the increasing mental health issues in mind, please don't wait until the red tier to send elementary age kids back. Do it now, like our neighbors have done at San Ramon Valley Unified and the La Miranda and Walnut Creek schools. If the MOU is an issue, the district has the right to renegotiate it given the guidelines from the CDC, California Department of Public Health, and Alameda County. Perhaps we can give the teachers a couple more days notice than the 10, but do it now. Don't wait for the red tier. Sadly, at 7 persons per 100,000, the red tier seems an almost unattainable goal, and our students should not have to keep waiting when the end of the school year is fast approaching. Third, as Trustee Maher talked about tonight, about staggering and getting our kids back to school right away, I propose the first week, preschool through second, 6th and 8th grade, and freshmen and seniors. The second week, grades, the rest of the grades, 3 and 5, 7, and 10 to 11. Do the whole thing in 2 weeks. There is no reason why the secondary students should have to wait just because. They're on different campuses and staggering can happen. Please do the right thing for our students. Some students are doing fine in remote, as you've heard, but others are suffering greatly. Get them back in school. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mary Gunson, Brooke Carusi, and then Jerry Ann May.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Dear members of the board, please open elementary schools now. This is the time to help the children. This is the time to be for kids. This is the time to amend the motion from 2 weeks ago and open elementary schools as suggested by the county. This has happened all over the Bay Area, as we've heard tonight. The district has been prepared. They have gone above and beyond the CDC, the Alameda County Health Department, the Cal OSHA requirements. The experts have stated that now is the time to open schools safely. Stop delaying and let those who want to go back have as much time as possible. Every week we wait, it hurts these poor elementary school students who are the most needy. I am tired of hearing from these meetings, I can't wait to open elementary schools. I want kids back in the buildings. We'll be in the red tier soon. We don't need to worry about those things. We don't need to wait. Now's the time. Our case rate is far below the recommended 25 per 100,000, and we're trending in the right direction, but it's not fair to rob these children anymore of this time. Amend the motion, renegotiate the MOU, do what it takes. Start the 2-week clock now. Thank you.
All right, next we have Brooke Crucy, followed by Jerry Ann May, and then Maria White.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Brooke Cruzy, parent of a 2nd, 4th, and 6th grader in the district. My kids have been out of school for 11 months. It's not going well. I worry about their futures and what harm this is doing to them long term. I see a change in them. They are deteriorating and doing the bare minimum. They have lost any love of learning they once had. It's heartbreaking to watch. A computer screen is no replacement for school and the socialization they need. They are lacking the in-person interaction they should be getting from peers and teachers. This is not sustainable, and I fear their mental health will continue to decline if we don't go back this school year. It is proven by the CDC that schools can be open safely. San Ramon opened this week. Cases are low in Pleasanton, and kids are the only ones losing out here. We need to get elementary back ASAP. We have the green light for elementary schools to open in purple tier when cases are 25 per 100,000. We are at 18 per 100,000. What is the rationale not to open schools now, and why are we going against the CDC recommendations and science? K through 5 should not have to wait for 10 days after red tier or vaccinations, because it is recommended that schools can open safely without vaccinations. I have never felt so powerless as a parent, and I'm tired of having to fight for what's right for my kids. Enough is enough. Stop stalling. Do the right thing for our kids. Thank you.
Okay. Jerry and May, if you're logged in, we don't see your name, but if you raise your hand. We can promote you. Looks like Zoom user.
Hi,
We can hear you. Go ahead.
great. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, board, and well, everybody that's there. Too many to name. I wanted to, first of all, thank you. I know this is a tough problem to solve, and you're never gonna. Sorry, I hit something. You're never gonna satisfy everyone. But I wanted to give you. I had some questions, and I have some comments. My daughter, she's an only child. She is on a 504 and has been for several years for anxiety that she actually gets at school because that's just her way of dealing with things. So she's a 10th grader at Amador now, and her choice when I asked her was to remain remote. And I was confused by that and asked her why, because she definitely is having mental health issues and sees a counselor every week. But she said because she did not want to have her current academic program modified in any way, because that would cause her more stress. So I just wanted to provide that as some information on going back and having remote and hybrid. My concern with that is you're going to have to do modifications to the remote learning. So she will be having a change to her existing classes because of that. So I have questions about that. The timeline also looks like the earliest is mid-April. So for 6 weeks for high school, that's just too much of an interruption, I feel. Also, for the fall term, my daughter definitely wants to go back to on-site, and I have the same concerns if you offer on-site and remote that you will not get the same quality education. So I just want to bring that up. I'll provide more information in an email because I ran out of time. Thank you.
All right, next we have Maria White, followed by Janine Keenan, and then Amy Zisk.
Good evening. I just had a few questions for our cabinet and our board to hopefully discuss tonight as we talk about going back into person, whether that's hybrid, full, whatever the plan is. What is the plan for class coverage for those that are on sick leave, on leave in general, or are quarantined? Are we going to have substitutes attempt to do the concurrent enrollment? Are they going to be teaching in the room? Are the teachers going to be at home teaching the kids who are in the room and the kids who are at home? I really feel like there needs to be something solid laid out with the plan for that, because even if 10% of the teachers are out for whatever reason, that's talking about 20 to 30 subs minimum. And I'm just really concerned if our district can handle that. Second, will the classes go remote if there is no teacher or sub for that day? If students are opting to come into the classroom to get that one-on-one face-to-face interaction, but then decide for that day that they don't want to come in, are they still allowed to get onto Zoom and then be marked as present, which would make total sense. But then what would happen if only one student shows up for the day and we have one student alone in a room with the teacher while everyone else is on Zoom? These are kind of the logistical questions that have been running through my head, and I'm hoping that that discussion can happen tonight so that all of us can have a better understanding of how this plan's going to work out. I also would like a little bit more of a conversation about how concurrent's going to work, because everyone keeps talking about theoretically how it's going to work out, but the only people who ever have taught during a pandemic are the teachers who are currently teaching during a pandemic. And so we'll keep hearing all these wonderful plans, but as somebody who's spoken to numerous other teachers in other states who are currently doing this concurrent plan, it is literally kids sitting in a room together on Zoom with kids at home on Zoom, because that's the only way that the kids can actually interact with each other. So please hash out these details so that teachers, parents, community at the high school level have a really good understanding of what this will look like when we do go back in person. Thank you so much.
All right, next we have Janine Keenan, Amy Zisk, and we're going to circle back to Jeff West.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. I am a parent of 4 PUSD students and a teacher at Foothill High School. Let me be clear. Our family wants schools to reopen, but only when it is safe for all. I have 3 points to make tonight. Number 1, family choice. Number 2, stable cohorts. And number 3, concurrent teaching. Let me start first with family choice. According to the survey, most parents elect to stay home. 60% elected to stay home. How do teachers cater to in-person learning when most of our kids intend to stay home on Zoom? Let's paint this picture. The in-person students in front of me will be masked, distanced, still listening to instructions over Zoom, and working on the exact same electronic work they received during remote learning. In-person learning is not going to cure the effects of this pandemic. We must understand that, both as teachers and parents. Number 2, stable cohorts. As the state of California advises, our plans are only valid if we maintain stable cohorts. How can we maintain these stable cohorts if, like our principals tonight are announcing, which by the way seems somewhat prompted and scripted, that students are participating in outside cohorts, including sports, band, clubs? A quick question, why are you, the board, seated so far apart tonight if you think it's safe to be gathered? Number 3, concurrent teaching. My biggest point, secondary teachers don't know what concurrent learning means. Is 1 day of training and a bunch of DIY videos sufficient to prepare us for this complex and dynamic teaching strategy? Every teacher I know is saying that concurrent teaching is a total disaster, and in great numbers, educators are leaving their jobs or are electing to take a leave of absence. The stress, confusion, and lack of meaningful teaching is negligent and reckless. Concurrent learning means bad teaching. It means less time with students, less attention to those who are already hiding behind their cameras, less time reaching students who need us most. My questions are these. Do we not value our employees enough to protect them? And why is the board so convinced that concurrent teaching is superior to remote teaching? Lastly, I urge you to get our entire community into a safer and more stable environment. We need to turn down the temperature of this conversation, alleviate this intensity. We need to stick to the original safe plan and wait for teachers to be vaccinated, wait for 2 weeks in red. Thank you so much for your time.
Before the next caller, we need to have a motion to extend the meeting if it goes past 10 o'clock, and it's almost 10 o'clock. So we have about 35 minutes of items after this item and probably quite a bit of discussion here. So what do you guys think in terms of an extension and a motion to do that?
Patrick, how many speakers do we have left?
2 more.
2, okay. 11 o'clock, Mark?
So we have a motion for midnight. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Trustee Carry-On.
Aye.
Trustee Maher.
Aye.
Trustee Mokashi.
Aye.
And I as well. We will try not to go that long. Please continue, Patrick.
All right, our final 2 for the evening are Amy Zisk, followed by Jeff West.
Hi, this is Amy. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I do not envy your job right now, first of all. Everyone on this call wants what's best for the kids and don't quite agree on what that is. And there's fear and there's a lot of things that need to work out. And it's very important that the teachers feel safe going to work. So I am glad that you guys are going to address their concerns. The last speaker brought up some good points that probably need to be addressed. My daughter is in elementary school. She's in kindergarten and she is not doing well with that. She acts like Zoom is a TV show that she can turn off whenever she would like. And then things got a little better. I'm an essential worker, so I've had to go in. I write safety protocols for returning for Clorox actually in town. And I was able to get her into Kids Club. And that was an amazing game changer for us. And they're just doing so well. And someone had a question earlier about the masks. My daughter's 5. I never thought she'd keep a mask on. She acts like it's part of her outfit or her underwear. It's on at home. We have to remind her to take it off. So they can do it, even the littles, which is nice. But I was reminded earlier, and again, there's so many things to work out, and I do appreciate that everyone has very strong feelings about this. But earlier this year, the mayors of the Tri-Valley cities submitted a letter stating they wanted to be held to the same standard as the neighboring cities instead of to Alameda County, because I think we all can agree that the Tri-Valley, like infection rates and how we are, how they are, is probably more similar, right? So it was weird when we couldn't go out to eat in Pleasanton, but we could go to San Ramon and go out to eat type of situation. And I think if the city leaders did that for the business, certainly we can do that for our children's education is just as important. But I do understand how complicated this is and what types of decisions you have to make. So thank you very much for your time. I would love it if we could open elementary school as soon as possible. Thank you.
All right, and next is Jeff West.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. Okay. So I guess I need to start with a disclaimer in these times. I'm the son of 2 public school teachers. My sister's a teacher. My dad was on the school board and he was the president. And I grew up in and around education my whole life and, of course, the associated politics, which, let's not kid ourselves, exist. I listened to the news the other morning and I was drinking my coffee and I was really depressed. They had wonderful videos of kids returning to school all over the Bay Area, San Ramon, neighboring communities, Danville. They went down the list and the newscaster started squinting towards the end and he said, and Pleasanton will open 14 days after being in the red tier. 18.1 is a joke. I mean, Steve, to answer your question, since nobody gave you a direct answer, the heat map shows that all the infections are mostly in Oakland. We're 4 days lagged from a 7-day rolling average. We then wait 14 days after that, and then 3 weeks after that for secondary education to come back. So let's just do the back of the envelope map. That's 42 days from being quote unquote blessed in the red, to answer your question, that our high schoolers and middle schoolers, my daughter, will be going back to school. Side note, what does even purple mean whenever the entire state is purple? We need to amend the MOU. To hear people talk about how much negotiation it is to amend an MOU, I mean, Julio, you said it's 2 days, is what I heard. Janelle was talking about how hard it is to, rearrange schedules to get 1 week back for the 8th graders when we're not even executing these schedules yet and nobody's actually in school. It's great to hear about risk management teams and safety precautions that frankly aren't even being followed because, again, no kids are actually in school. We need to be doing better. We need to be working harder. We need to be amending things and doing whatever we have to do to get kids back in school now.
All right, and just to double check, we had 2 blue comment cards submitted. I don't see these names on our attendee list, but those were from Christine Lutz and Andrea. I see we have 1 telephone caller. I just wanted to confirm. Actually, I think the telephone caller is Andrea. Andrea, if you press *6, you should be able to unmute. Or raise your hand. It matches.
Hi there. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to take the time to share our experience as part of a small cohort class at PMS. Our cohort, which consists of more of a moderate to severe level SDC class, has been in person since mid-November. And for the students who opted to come in person, it's been amazing, very successful, especially given how challenging it is for our kiddos to access their learning and just accessing their services from home. So it's been great, and the staff is amazing. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. But also I wanted to say, too, that with the success, there's been, some adjustments and bumps along the way, and understandably so. So, for example, since November, on 3 different occasions, our class has been suspended and forced to return to remote learning due to a staffage shorting. And I know an earlier caller had kind of asked about substitutes, and I think that's a very valid point. As a matter of fact, our current cohort is actually at home right now for this reason until further notice. And no blame or fault is being placed here, but I did want to bring it up just because being short-staffed has been a challenge to date. Like I said, since November, we've already been suspended 3 times. And whether it's due to an illness, COVID-related or not, I did want to share the concern with the board and the district so that a conversation can be made to address the issue. And I hope that an effort can be made to either recruit and build a base of available substitutes if that's the issue. I'm not sure, obviously, the hiring practices or how that works. But for parents and students who are at home and excited about the opportunity to return in person, they may get frustrated if they do experience the same if an absence occurs and there is no substitute staff available. So I know it doesn't happen overnight and we're learning how to navigate with COVID, but I am sharing this as it's just been a frequent issue, and we can learn a lot about reopening from a class that is and has already been there. And so I just appreciate the time. I do want to lastly just thank our staff at PMS. Miss Donna, if you're out there, you're amazing. Miss Michelle, Miss Lucy, and Denise, I just want to say thank you. And thank you to those who are able to be on site to support our kids. It is clear teachers are essential, and I do hope that the district can find a way to navigate our way back to school life, while we're living with and in this COVID world. It doesn't mean it's easy, but I do hope that, we can find our way. And just lastly, I do want to thank our teacher, Mrs. Burney, for her genuine efforts and the support that we get from her, from our students, whether we're home or remote, and also some of the special education staff, Mr. Gokin, Kelly Slattery, behaviorist, so many others, our speech therapists and staff. We do appreciate everything, and I know it's difficult, but I do want to say thank you, and I hope that the issue with substitutes can eventually be addressed so short staffing can be addressed as well. Thank you again for your time.
All right, Vice President Miller, that is our last comment.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to a 5-minute recess for one task break. And then we're going to come back and we're going to ask any additional questions we might have. Then we'll talk about some comments and potential motions. So come back and at exactly 10:15.